What AF asterisk King World? An open-air coffee shop, sun umbrellas, tea tables, soft spring breeze, and the sexy woman sitting on a chair combine to form a beautiful landscape. This is a delicate woman wearing a red high-top hat with long tails and short purple hair. She can be said to be very bold in her dress. On the upper body is an open chest and long-sleeved waistcoat. You can see the mountains upright and rounded, and on the lower body is a split-tail skirt, and the slender white legs are wearing red long-tube high heels. Next to the chair is a rolled-up flagpole. Sexy and bold are spread all over. It's just that the age doesn't seem very big. Compared with the mature and sexy that appeared 20 years later, it is now at best youthful and sexy, and it lacks a sense of story precipitation. In addition to being youthful and sexy, the first impression is that there is also a sense of sight of a straightforward female man. Just like now, while drinking coffee while watching the news, he keeps swearing. I heard that the Golden Emperor is on the island, and God will help me too. Bello Beatty put down the news, touched her pink lips, thinking about how to catch the Golden Emperor. As long as you turn the Golden Emperor into your own little brother, you can eat as many almonds as you want, and you can buy whatever you want. The more you think about it, the more affordable you will feel. Madam, I hear you calling me? Are you asking me for a cup of coffee? An unwarranted voice rang in her ears, and Betty subconsciously reached out and grabbed the flagpole next to the chair, and quickly left the coffee table with vigilance. She was really scared. There are no signs of abruptness. However, her eyes widened slightly at this moment, and she even looked at the man who was sitting on the chair lightly in disbelief, looking at her playfully. The Golden Emperor. Betty's slender eyebrows trembled. Would you like to be so accurate? I was still hitting the opponent's attention just now, and the result appeared in the next moment. The shape of the Golden Emperor is too eye-catching, it is difficult to recognize it. Black vertical hair, gold earrings, gold goose feather coat, gold dragon tattoo, gold beach pants, gold flip-flops, gold ring, gold light wheel. The whole body is full of gorgeous luxury, such an arrogant and high-profile guy. There was only the Golden Emperor on the sea. This costume is really annoying. Especially coupled with the arrogant contempt spreading in the femur, people can't help but want to go up for a few stabs inexplicably. Naked to attract hatred, it's too tugging.
Bello Beatty. Chaos did not admit his mistake. He was really Bello Beatty, commander of the Eastern Army of the future Revolutionary Army, Paramecia, a fruit-inspiring ability, and a sexy eldest sister who didn't like to wear underwear.
It's just that Bello Beatty is still very young, but she still can't prevent bold dressing. The snow-white gully is quite deep and very predictable. Can see the hemisphere. You know me? Bello Beatty is more vigilant, she is not a pirate. She doesn't have any fame on the sea. She is pretty sure that it is the first time to meet with the Golden Emperor, and the other party actually knows her. It looks like you have eaten the fruit of inspiration. Looking at Bello Beatty, who was holding the flagpole tightly, Sows frustrated a cigar, and said after a sip, "Don't be so nervous. Drink a cup of coffee first, don't you just want to catch me?" Counseled. Betty wrinkled her delicate face and looked very upset at the other person's smile. "Since you delivered it to the door, then I'm not welcome." Betty had a violent temper, and could not bear the arrogance that Chaos exudes inside and out for a long time. Holding the flagpole and covering the armed color, he stabbed Chaos. It's neat and neat without leaving any water. The most important thing is that the other party seems to know her well, even Devil Fruit knows it. This is a huge threat. Betty is very insecure. Facing the menacing spur, Chaos just turned his head, and then reached out to cover the armed color and grabbed it. But Betty's reaction was quick. The slender and long legs swept across, and a spring of spring reflected in Chaos' pupils. Betty does not like to wear underwear on the upper body, but still wears the lower body. But because of the high forked long tail skirt, everything was exposed in a quick glance. A storm blasted out in a fan shape, all the surrounding tables, chairs and benches were lifted off, and Chaos's figure gradually faded. It's an afterimage. It's really spicy. You succeeded in getting my attention. The playful voice sounded behind Betty, and he could even feel the heat. Chaos didn't know when he put his hands in Kabuto and appeared behind Betty, like an outsider. Betty clenched all over, and did a spinning kick without thinking about it, covering the arms with great vigor. Chaos didn't rush, raised his foot with his knees against Betty's white legs, and punched out randomly. In an emergency, Betty held the flagpole to block it, and the whole person took the opportunity to pull away and stand in the air after a few somersaults, to the ground. His face is serious. With just 2 short moves, Betty knew that he was not an opponent. So, Betty fled straight away. Seeing Betty's fast disappearing figure, Chaos really froze for a while. Will the great elder sister of the Revolutionary Army in the future, the commander of the Great Eastern Army, be so flexible and stretchable when he was young? It was unexpected. Chaos is sure that the other party is not serious yet. Boom. The explosion on the ground caused a large amount of rubble, and a lock of sky fell from the sky, blocking Betty's path of golden brilliance. Betty quickly avoided the direction of change, but another lock of sky fell in the next moment. Boom boom boom. With successive explosions, a large amount of dust began to swell to obscure the line of sight, a large amount of mud and sand broke through the air, and the locks of all the sky were stretched and vaguely formed a birdcage. Damn it. Betty waved the flagpole, her breath soared, her speed also increased, and she escaped when the lock of heaven was completely sealed off. Feeling the changes that happened to Betty, Chaos became more satisfied. In Chaos's opinion, encouraging fruit is also a bug. In the original work, it is to inspire the strength of others' hearts. In short, it is to add buff to people, and it is also a group addition. Even an ordinary person, with the ability to inspire fruits, can also play a challenge to the tens of millions of Pele pirates. The reason why the future Revolutionary Army is so jealous by the world government, this fruit can be said to occupy a lot of ingredients. Because under this fruit, even ordinary people can become fighters, and they can completely control the trend in war. It is an extremely powerful auxiliary ability. If you are inspired, your combat effectiveness may have to rise by several levels. Stussy's special effects, Betty's buff, and recorded BGM are just like even more powerful tools for pretending to be B. The more you look at Betty Chaos, the more pleasing to the eye. Buff is simply a plugin. He was determined to make this woman able to make a person use 200% of his power. Chaos waved his hand. All the locks of the sky exploded and turned into gold dust to form a golden wave, spraying in all directions toward Betty and encircling him, and Betty's face changed in the face of such an attack. I can't hide it at all. It's over. The left and right have never escaped. Watching the sands that swept on the face, Betty blocked the flagpole in front of him, covering his armed face with unwillingness. Unexpectedly, my old lady would be planted here. Rustle. Without imaginary damage, all the sand surrounded Betty, and soon lifted off and disappeared into the sky. Betty opened her eyes and looked left and right, except that her body was dyed golden, there were no wounds, and she was still alive and well. What did you do to me? Betty turned and looked at Chaos, who was holding his hands on his shoulders and holding a cigar in his mouth, with a very ugly face. She is not stupid. I invite you to have a cup of coffee. Chaos hooked his fingers. Betty found that she couldn't control her body, and couldn't even make an expression. The whole person floated to Chaos, and finally they sat face to face in the coffee shop again. What do you want to do? After sitting down, Betty found that he could speak, and immediately stared at Chaos, even if he was hiding well, but there was still a trace of despair and panic in his eyes. She didn't know what this man was going to do. Become the most arrogant person in the world with me. Chaos spit out smoke rings and invited Betty. What? Betty looked surprised, thinking that she had heard it wrong. Chaos shrugged, beckoned to the waiter who was avoiding not far away, motioned for 2 more cups of coffee. What a joke. Betty was very excited. How could she be someone else's subordinate? She is Bello Beatty. I will never surrender to death. Betty is very hardened, her face is full of death. It's just that women don't let the eyebrows, and the sexy reveals that Ning Jae is unyielding. She still has a good time to pass. How can she surrender to others and let freedom disappear? Then you go to die. Chaos pointed a little, and the golden light wheel erected on his back turned into a golden long sword, stabbing Betty's heart in one fell swoop. And many more. Betty's heart palpitations broke. This guy doesn't even know how to pity Shang Xiyu. Under normal circumstances, there should be a few more invitations. This doesn't follow common sense. The golden sword was only 1 centimeter away from the white chest, and Chaos was expressionless. What other last words? You. Betty's face gradually turned red. Looking at the golden sword on her chest, she could feel the cold air even if she was a centimeter away, and her heart no longer beats. How to do? The exquisite faces slumped, and Betty knew there was no choice. 5 days later, on the magnificent sea, a golden Lamborghini flew slowly. Chaos was sitting in the driver smoking a cigar, and the co-pilot was the awkward Betty. Since she lowered her head 5 days ago, the man has taken her around the ocean. In the past 5 days, she initially realized the man's nerves. Arrogance, high profile, dying, and troublemaking will never cease for a moment. Also put conquerors indiscriminately. It's either on the way to cause trouble or on the way to cause trouble. Don't be too embarrassed about the team's mission and culture. This guy can not only speak out, but also prove it with practical actions. So that she is also famous now. Looking at the newspaper in his hand, there is a picture of her on it. The following information shows. The richest group of dancing queen, buff queen Bello Beatty, offered a reward of 230 million. Sexy role in the richest group. Motto. Society is my dancing sister, sexy is justice. Looking at this information, she was also stunned. Originally, she would not be offered a reward, but the man next to him swaggered to a Marine branch, forcibly threatened other Marine, and even talked with Marine Marshal Kong Kong on the phone, specifically asking him to post a reward. What I want is just an attitude. This kind of blind operation really shocked her. In order to tie her to the chariot, this man also tried his best. Little did she know that she would resist as long as she had a chance, but Bello Beatty, the old lady, how could she succumb to a man? What a joke. I'm just trying to take the courage. Betty sneered in her heart. Even though it had only been 5 days, she had already seen the face of the man next to her. It's totally crazy. There is no guarantee at all to cause trouble everywhere. If this continues, she will not even know how she died for a long time, and now she has a feeling of enemy to the world, and she will die at any time. The risk is too great. In addition, this man is also a nameless man, and insists on going his own way. Dancing queen, buff queen, what the hell is this? Don't you feel ashamed? Embarrassing? Shameless? What is the richest group? Is it her power? Is it so vulgar? But there is one thing she is satisfied with, that is, she is sexy. It seems that this man is not blind, but this is where her positioning and charm lies. But I have to complain about the motto. In society, Sister Wu, she sounds like the big sister of the gangster. Sexy is justice, which is in line with her. In addition, this man is also very hypocritical. The previous sentence also said freedom of speech, which is not a word in the whole group, but the messy information will be fixed in the next second. She just froze for 3 seconds, and the guy thought he agreed. So there is the present reward information. It's terrible. Finally, she is wanted as the queen of dancing and queen of buff. Open your wanted newspaper, and there are a few more. Be regarded as her future colleague. Photo. Power. The richest group name. Stussy title. Queen of Joy, Queen of Red Light District. Positioning. Responsible for appearance reward, 360 million. Motto. I am happy in society, and the value of beauty is justice. Devil fruit. Logia cloudy fruit. There is not much information, but in Betty's opinion, this is the only person who can threaten her. Why is she responsible for her appearance? Although his sexy role positioning is not bad, but his appearance is also first class, okay. So before they met, Betty didn't catch a cold with this woman. There are 2 more people next. Power, the richest group. Name. Sir Crocodile title. King of the Desert, Czar, Emperor Chuanchi, environmental killer, thinker. Positioning. In charge of brainwashing reward, 560 million. Motto. Social I am Sha Yi, arrogance is justice. Devil fruit. Logia sand fruit. This man, Betty, has seen it in the news that offered a reward several times before, but what the hell is brainwashing? Forget it, the gender is different and it can't threaten oneself. Then there is another person. Power, the richest group. Name. Dun Aquino title. Sun King, Warm King. Positioning. Hotly responsible reward, 210 million. Motto. Society is my brother, warmth is justice. Devil fruit. The gender is different, still can't threaten her, just ignore it. The last one is the man next to him. The information is much more detailed than they are. In the main driving, Chaos glanced at Betty from the corner of his light, and then he blew out smoke rings to think. After talking with 5 elders, things about the red light district came to an end. It started with such a big fanfare, but ended up in just 2 or 3 words. There is still some emptiness in my heart. So far, what 5 elders is doing is what he likes. Now the red light district Stussy is closing quickly, and the others remain normal. His wanted is not withdrawn, everything is the same. But in the past few days, he has standardized the team. From now on, he will be the boss of the richest man group. As for Crocodile and their information, it is naturally the result of his negotiation with Marine. Of course, both sides are not happy. In the end, he decided to call with Kong. Chaos knew that world government would get rid of him as long as he had the opportunity. If he was taken lightly, he would be finished at any time. But he didn't panic. The next step is pure gold. Happy Island, in a castle. Stussy sits on the sofa with her snow-white legs superimposed, drinking coffee very gracefully, looking at the newspaper in her hand. This motto is not bad. I am happy in society, and the value of the face is justice. The richest group? Sure enough, it didn't disappoint me. Stussy looked at the news about her reward, feeling so helpless. She knew that the man named her, and it was embarrassing, but he was used to it now. N? Did you add 2 more colleagues when I was away? Hot responsibility? Sexy in charge? Stussy glanced casually at the information about Aquino, focusing on the Betty news. Humph. Can't help but snorted coldly, just because this woman wants to threaten her status. Are you here to be funny? Sexy is vulnerable to beauty, not to mention that you can control any temperament, youth, maturity, temptation, uniform, queen fan. As long as she is willing, no woman can be more attractive than her. For some reason, Stussy was a little upset. It's about your own charm in the group, so sloppy. Nothing can be disputed, but whoever is the most attractive and beautiful is absolutely to be disputed. This is about the dignity of a woman. The world will always remember only the first, and no one will remember the second. The two sides have not yet met, they have become hostile. My queen, Perros branch. A burly man in a suit walked in outside the gate, holding a pile of materials to report to Stussy about the status of other red light divisions. He was recently promoted, and he was a little leader among the leaders before. To them, Stussy was the queen. And this time the death toll was as high as tens of thousands, and many familiar faces were gone. It really scared some of the executive leaders in the entire red light district, and now some of them dare not come to see Stussy. This time Stussy was indeed cruel, because she found that she used to be too kind. You go down first. Yes. The big man breathed a sigh of relief, put the information on the desk and walked out cautiously. Stussy took a sip of coffee and picked up the information to check it, but the more he looked at it, his face became darker. Although the world government has withdrawn its power, the red light district forces have not fully recovered. Amorous woman Medusa, slave king Kalida Stallo, tobacco man Thachate. Funeral home magnate Dragu Peklo, tanker Gibson. The king of loan sharks Dufeld, big news Morgans. Ocean king Umit. Frowning, none of these guys are easy to deal with. Stussy couldn't help rubbing his forehead. All of the above were big names in the underground world. During this time, he swallowed a lot of power in the red light district, and it was impossible to spit out what he ate. Especially the 3 forces of the style woman, the slave king, and the tobacco man. Even if there was no chaos in the red light district, she was not as powerful as the other party. As for the rest, although they are not as powerful as the first 3, they can't be underestimated. Not worse than her red light district. Aside from these forces, there are some other small forces, etc., either forcibly occupying or grabbing business. A little troublesome. At present, we can only consolidate the existing forces first. As for these underground world bosses, we can't act rashly. You can only settle the accounts slowly later. At this moment, on the sea, all forces are also holding the latest news. The richest group, the king of the desert, the king of the sun, the queen of joy, and the queen of dancing are all a little hot. What are brainwashing, hot, beauty, sexy, social my Sha Yi, Huan's sister, dancing sister, Dun brother, the strange title is very dazzling. As for the Golden Emperor, the popularity has always been high, and the news flow on this point really cannot increase. But in the future, the Golden Emperor is also a powerful person. The richest group boss. Calm Belt, a golden Lamborghini swiftly passed, and finally stopped under a cliff on a pristine island. Close the door and get out of the car in one go. Chaos dangling a cigarette and looking at the 2 people in front of him, couldn't help but smoke. As for Betty, she was also surprised. Boss. Crocodile is the same as when they parted 5 days ago, but Aquino is different. His lower body was surrounded by a straw skirt, his body was covered with various scars or wounds, his eyes were bulging and bloodshot, and the dark circles like the bottom of a pot all showed that Aquino was supporting him. That was his last stubbornness. The main thing is the chubby body of Aquino, who has lost 3 full circles, which is no different from the bamboo pole. The whole person is like being sucked up by the fox spirit, and the spirit is not right. A pair of oil-exhausted lamps withered, looks like they may ascend to heaven at any time. Yaosho. When I left, it was still 300 kilograms, but only 50 kilograms were left in 5 days. This is too frantic. Lao Sha. What did you do to Lao Dun? Chaos became serious. Although he didn't insist on harmony with his subordinates, he didn't need to fight like his father's revenge. Betty, who was next to him, took the newspaper and compared it several times. The picture of the Sun King and the real person are completely two people. This difference is also inhumane. It's none of my business if I didn't do anything. I let him rest and he refused. Crocodile spread his hands, and now Aquino's appearance was completely made by himself. It was his business. It's really none of your business. Chaos looked suspicious. Facing the gaze of Chaos, Crocodile looked arrogant. Oldton, wake up. Chaos retracted his gaze, stretched out his hand and patted Aquino's face. This guy was muddled by now, presumably his soul was not in his body. Boom. Aquino attacked in vain, his right fist was red with hot steam, and there was no sign of it. Chaos frowned and disappeared in place and appeared behind Aquino. A hitter knife forcibly stunned Aquino. He could see that the blow was Aquino's unconscious attack, and he should be fine after sleeping. Ask when you wake up. Chaos always feels related to Crocodile, but it can't get rid of it anyway. Boss. Let's get a cigar first. Crocodile hasn't smoked a cigar for 2 days, after all, he has been on the island for 5 days. With a move of Chaos, he shot down a golden cigarette case at a height of 1,000 meters, suspended it in front of Crocodile and opened it, with cigars lined up inside. Huh. After pulling out a stick, Crocodile squinted and spit out a smoke ring. Only then did he notice Betty's presence. What is this exhibitionist woman? The sexy role in our team. Chaos was a little speechless, but Betty's dress was indeed a bit offensive. It feels a bit exhibitionist. But each has its own opinions. Some see sexy, charming, and seductive, and some see exhibitionism. For example, Crocodile. I don't know if the brothel gave him a psychological shadow that time, and now he is not very cold towards women. After a moment of light, Betty's face sank as expected. How can you bear that petty temper? Ugly man. Yep. Crocodile didn't seem to hear clearly, and stared at Betty slightly. And Betty leaned her chin up. Her eyes squinted as if she was looking down at Crocodile, and she relentlessly said, "It's you." Feel the atmosphere of rattling swords, and there are faint shadows of swords and swords. Chaos was a bachelor, grabbed Aquino and retreated. A gangster elder sister is big, and his temper is naturally violent. The murderous spirit floating in the air is getting heavier and heavier. In society, I am Sha Yi, and in society, I am Sister Dance. Boom. The circular air pressure swept out, and a big foot collided with a long slender leg, all covering the arms and looking at each other, eyes full of arrogance and contempt. The ground began to crack, forming a crack in the spider's web. Chaos, who was watching the show, was tapping his cigar, with black vertical hair and a golden goose feather coat dancing, and he probably knew who would win. As expected, Lao Sha will win. If it is based on the old sand at this time in the original work, it may not be much cheaper. After all, Betty can stack buff for herself. It's so domineering. But now the old Shah is no longer the old Shah, he has been rejuvenated. Chaos left after watching it for a while. Neither of them were fools. At most they would give each other offenses and would not go to death. After all, he was still talking about it. Coming to the mountains in the depths of the island, Chaos looked at the stream in front of him, spitting out a smoke ring with a cigar in his mouth. The goddess of 1,000 meters high in the sky fell, and his right hand turned into a spiral drill, because Chaos felt that there is a lot of gold in this underground area. It is likely to be a small gold mine. The goddess is 150 tall, and it's time to continue to develop. Almost 5 or 6 minutes later, a deep well tunnel appeared on the ground, and Chaos jumped directly down, almost 30 meters down, and finally found a gold mine. Reached out and touched, the medium was reached, the whole ground shook, and large pieces of gold began to break through the ground and see the sun again. Chaos was naturally pushed out of the ground. This is not a small flaw. Although Chaos can sense where there is gold in the ground, it cannot be manipulated in the air. It must be touched with his hands beforehand. Otherwise, even if it is placed in front of Chaos's eyes, it can't be controlled. The next step is to refine the gold, increase its density and hardness, and turn it into pure gold and merge with the goddess. When visible to the naked eye, the goddess begins to grow taller and stronger. 5 hours later, the goddess rose from 150 meters to 170 meters, reaching the limit of Chaos. Strictly speaking, it has not only increased by 20 meters, because the golden light wheel erected on the back of the goddess has also become larger. If the golden light wheel of the goddess is separated, it can become another goddess. The goddess and the golden light wheel have always been the same size, but the shape is different. Ended. Back under the cliff, all around it was dilapidated, with upturned hills and cracks everywhere. Betty lay on all sides in the ruins, two groups of weapons undulating, with blood still hanging on the corners of her mouth. Opposite, Crocodile smoking a cigar, short of breath and embarrassed, now looking at the news. With a grin, Vanity was greatly satisfied. King of the Desert, Tsar, Emperor Chuanchi, Environmental Killer, Thinker. He didn't know that he was so hungry. These titles were simply suitable for him. However, Emperor Chuanchi didn't understand it very well. But it does not prevent him from approving this newspaper. It's just that there are some flaws in the positioning. It turned out to be some kind of brainwashing. He has always positioned himself to be responsible for the male appearance. After reading his own news report, he passed Aquino and Stussy directly, and looked at Betty's news report with disdain. The two sides had just talked cordially with fists, and he admitted that this woman had two brushes, at least much better than Aquino. But the personality is extremely rude and violent. I don't know that I thought it was the eldest sister of the underworld. I don't know where the honey is confident, and even arrogant to him. Words such as rubbish, foolish people, trash, etc. come in handy, without any cultural qualities. Not like a woman at all. Positioning or being sexy, where is it sexy? Just this dress with an open chest and no underwear, called sexy? It's an exhibitionist. Crocodile sneered. Have you never seen such a sexy woman? Look again and poke you blind. Betty stared, murderous in it. Crocodile's contemptuous look made her very unhappy. Okay. We will be members of a group from now on. If you don't like each other, you will fight in the future. Lao Sha, go and prepare the ingredients for dinner, and go to New World tomorrow. Humph. When Chaos spoke, Crocodile snorted to Betty. A hero who didn't fight with the girl, turned into flying sand and disappeared. Get up. Chaos stretched out his hand to look at Betty. This guy was still very dissatisfied. Still too young. Looking at the corners of Betty's bleeding mouth, and the exhausted Aquino not far away, Chaos's inspiration flashed, and there seemed to be a doctor in the group.
Someone seems very suitable. Whether it is injured or tired, it can be bounced off. Now the special effects background, BGM, and buff are all available, and there is still a bug of recovery state.
Since we have already cut Who once, it should be no problem if we cut it twice or 3 times. I don't know how long Chuangye is doing. Now Bartholomew Kuma may still be the king of the kingdom of Sorbet, or he may have gone to sea as a pirate. But the title of Kun Kun should not have emerged, otherwise there should be more or less rewards in the news. It seems necessary to investigate. Pulling Betty up, Chaos took out the phone bug from the golden goose feather coat and dialed in front of Betty. Boss. The phone worm only rang for 10 seconds and was connected. It's Stussy's voice. Stussy, investigate a man named Bartholomew Kuma. He may be the king of the kingdom of Sorbet, or he may have gone out to sea as a pirate. Chaos said about the bear's information. Understood. Boss, there is one more thing that needs to be reported to you. Say. Current business in the red light district. Stussy talked about the situation in the red light district carefully. The underground kings and some niche forces involved are everywhere. It is not a small trouble to let these forces spit out what they eat. Chaos has been smoking a cigarette, frowning when Stussy finished speaking. You should get rid of those small forces first. As for the Slave King and others, wait for me to settle the matter of pure gold, and talk to them with their fists in person. For the underground world, Chaos is not looking at it for a day or 2. It's just that I can't get out now, and when I get the pure gold, it's time to rectify it. Okay. Then I hang up. As the phone worm hung up, Chaos began to think about it. It is not so easy to rectify the underground world. Those forces are intricate and complicated, and the interests behind them may cover the big forces with names and surnames all over the world. World government, marine, flying pirate group, big mom, these powerful pirate groups, let alone some kingdom forces. Gyuki Snake God does not know how many. Chaos knows very well that wanting to unify the underground world is simply unrealistic, at most occupying a certain share, and he hasn't had that appetite to swallow it all. However, his market share is at least 50%. Just because he is the Golden Emperor, rich. It's that wayward. How hang. Chaos had even thought of his code name in the underground world. It's called the Dark Emperor. The Revolutionary Army is called the Emperor. The richest group is called Golden Emperor. Perfect. Every title is very high. At night, a bright Milky Way stretches across the sky. A pile of bonfires is constantly burning. Crocodile has a serious face, and uses sand to form a blackboard, explaining the culture of the team's purpose to Betty in a righteous voice. Aquino was still lying down. Kaios sat next to Betty, listening to Crocodile's fragrant mouth. With one hand on his chin, Betty looked at Crocodile like a fool, yawning from time to time. It was obvious that the left ear went in and the right ear came out, and he didn't even listen. The purpose of these shit culture, the man next to him has already told him. It's almost the same for fooling children. She is Bello Betty, how could she be influenced by a few words? But I have to admit that this guy still has some truth. It's not a random fabrication. What you talk about is easy to make people excited, something called a dream, is gradually taking shape. It was careless at first, but Betty became more serious over time. Compared to Chaos's second grade and straightforward eloquence, Crocodile is undoubtedly smoother and easier to hit people's hearts. Chaos picked up the red wine on the golden table and watched the Crocodile performance blankly. This guy hasn't seen him for 5 days, and he seems to have gotten deeper. He could feel Betty's contempt at the beginning, and the thoughtfulness now. Of course, no one is a fool. I just feel that what Crocodile said is reasonable, including Aquino, who has not been completely brainwashed. People are sober, but there is a dream and goal in their hearts. Boss, the above is the purpose culture I added. Crocodile just picked up the glass with a dry mouth, he needs to moisturize his throat. Good. Chaos was very generous, dangling a cigar in his mouth and gave very warm applause. Betty has no expression, just looking at Chaos and Crocodile weirdly. She always feels that these two people are mentally abnormal. She thought that it was only Chaos who had a problem. Now it seems that the whole team is afraid that there is a problem. She hasn't had much contact with Aquino and Stussy, so she doesn't know, but she is quite sure now. She is currently the most normal one. Betty, our team has free speech. You can speak boldly if you have any ideas. After Crocodile sat on the golden chair, Chaos turned his head to look at Betty, who was still talking. I just want to ask a question, is it really good to find death like this? Betty probably understands the team's purpose and culture. What is arrogant, high-profile, exciting, heartbeat, free and easy can be summed up in 2 words. Seek death. Are looking for death. That's right, in Betty's opinion, these 2 men are completely looking for death and suicide. Please, it's easy to be targeted with such waves and drags. Even if you die, you may not know how to die. Madman. These 2 guys are crazy. Too crazy. She has no sense of security at all now. I have seen drag and arrogant, but I have never seen such a thing. It fully interprets the spirit of doing as long as you don't die. Lao Shah, it seems we still have some doubts about our sexy role. Chaos flicked soot, very calm. Cough. Crocodile coughed and watched Betty speak a little serious. The mystery of life is the stimulus and heartbeat at that moment. You belong to the kind of weak woman who has no dreams and will only spend a lifetime in a daze. To be a human being is to live a chic life. Before Crocodile had finished speaking, Betty slammed the table and stood up. The petty temper exploded on the spot. What are you talking about? I'm weak. Unconscious. My old lady is Bello Betty. Who says my old lady has no dreams? Do you look down on my old lady? You trash, scum, fool. Chaos was caught off guard and almost failed to clamp the cigar. Although he knew that Betty was a bit rude and pungent, he didn't expect it to be so serious, and he felt more fierce than 20 years later. This character is completely opposite to Stussy. After all, Stussy is still more reserved, most of the time in the state of a lady. But Betty felt like a thorn, the kind of mixed society. It's still a lever. Self-esteem seems to be strong and arrogant. From meeting with Crocodile, you can tell that this is a tiger lady. But this character is obsessed with sexy. The contrast scale is slightly larger. Fool. Lousy is Czar Crocodile. Crocodile was also on fire, and the other party pointed at him and cursed, even a man couldn't bear it. What's more, when he passed the brothel, he didn't catch a cold to women. Want to fight? The old lady is the dancing queen Bello Betty, or she should be sexy. Will Lousy be afraid of you? Shit sexy, you are an exhibitionist. Crocodile. My mother killed you today. The 2 eyes seemed to be breathing fire. As soon as Betty grasped the flagpole, the covered armed color stabbed towards Crocodile. The latter appeared with a sand knife in his right hand, and the covered armed color also slashed out. Swish. The strong wind and waves swept all around, and a new round of battle began. Chaos rubbed his forehead, which also became too fast. Forget it. As long as immune to death, he won't bother. Little did they know that such a Shira situation would become more and more fierce in the future, especially when Stussy came back. The next day, The scorching sun was shining. The golden Lamborghini was driving on the calm sea, and it was the four of chaos. The co-pilot was sitting crocodile, with Betty and Aquino in the back two seats. Now Aquino was awake, but became taciturn. His eyes trembled from time to time, feeling that his condition was more serious than 5 days ago. Chaos also knew about the 5 days. How to say? Aquino didn't become stupid, he just didn't want to talk, and he was a bit schizophrenic. Crocodile's brainwashing said he succeeded and he failed. As soon as he woke up this morning, Aquino challenged Crocodile. Even Betty and Chaos hadn't let it go, it was all hob meat. A grumpy bash. It seems to be very enthusiastic about the battle. It is the feeling that I will kill you if you don't kill me, and it's really different from the beginning. After a big change in personality, he is somewhat similar to Kaido. In these short 5 days, Aquino has also become stronger, both in temperature and in physical fitness. But even this can't change the fact that Aquino is weak in the team. Now the black and swollen face is the result of the failure of the challenge. Betty was sitting in the back seat, with her right hand on the car door propped her chin, her short purple hair dancing wildly in the sea breeze, glanced at Aquino next to him, and Sows and Crocodile in the front seat. Betty had a kind of drunk everyone. I am alone with a sense of superiority. She is now sure that Aquino is also a mentally abnormal guy. The first two are the same, only oneself is normal. In fact, Aquino, Crocodile, and even Chaos also felt this way. No one except themselves was a normal person. What does this point out? It shows that everyone is not forced to count. The red line is here. After flying for a while, everyone saw the Crimson Continent towering into the clouds. As long as they cross this continent, they can reach the New World. Chaos looked at this Crimson Continent with smoke rings, and an idea came out in vain. It seems that it will be delayed for a few more days. The golden Lamborghini did not slow down. When flying below the red line, it ran directly on the red wall. A gold tributary was automatically extended from the seat to form a seatbelt to tie the three of Betty. Red line is notoriously barren and hard, far stronger than some islands, and it is difficult for plants to survive on it. The entire red line was shrouded in clouds and mist from halfway up the mountain, and Chaos initially estimated that it would be tens of thousands of meters. The more upward the air becomes thinner. Wanting to climb this continent is really not something ordinary people can do. A few minutes later, a crowd of people got out of the car and looked at the top of the Red Line Mountain, which was like a goby, and was a little surprised. After all, they have never been to the top of the mountain. It was desolate and wide, and there were no plants on it, except for the sound of the screaming wind. Ordinary people who come here suddenly may fall into a coma due to lack of oxygen. Chaos looked around, and saw and heard some of the watchtower buildings. I think it should be someone arranged by the world government. However, the red line's range is too large, coupled with the incomparable desolation, so the two watchtowers are far apart. Some places have even been deserted, leaving only wreckage. There are some unique soil and rocks, and you can find that they are much stronger than ordinary soil. It may be that the density is too high, so many plants cannot survive, and the altitude is too high. It is difficult to see the sea from here, unless the clouds and fog change. Shall we blow the air here? Betty stared and tightened her open-chested trench coat, which was a little bit cold. There is nothing good about this, the bare land is barren and desolate. Chaos didn't speak, squeezed his chin, lifted his foot and stepped on it, and began to recall all sorts of wild speculations in some forums in his previous life. Some netizens said that there are a lot of devil fruit or gold and silver treasures buried on the Red Line. Probably the Pluton body of the three ancient weapon is also buried in Red Line. There is even speculation that Raftel, the final island, is somewhere on the Red Line and can enter the inner space through the sea. Some netizens also said that the truth about devil fruit is also inside Red Line, such as the imaginary devil fruit tree. There is even speculation that the headquarters of the D family is also inside the Red Line. In short, all kinds of speculations are full of imagination, but whether these speculations are correct or not, it is generally accepted that Red Line has absolute secrets. Lao Sha, make a hole out. Chaos looked up at Crocodile. Although the Red Line was hard, it couldn't be easier for Crocodile to break it. Is there something underneath? Betty looked at the ground suspiciously. Crocodile was smoking a cigar, and Aquino blinked. I heard that there might be treasures under here. Real or fake? Betty's interest immediately aroused. Crocodile didn't hesitate. Centering on itself, the Red Line began to desert, and the crowd gradually sank. After half an hour, I didn't know how many meters he had sneaked into. At Aquino's body temperature, his upper body was like a luminous body illuminating the surroundings. Except for the deserted soil, nothing else appeared. Betty looked suspiciously at Chaos. It seems there is nothing. Chaos was also a little murmured, but he was still very calm. Try it again. Crocodile didn't speak, and the crowd sank again, as if taking an elevator. The soil on both sides was automatically sanded and separated. After more than 10 minutes, Crocodile's expression suddenly changed. Boss, there really is something. As soon as Crocodile's words fell, as if breaking a barrier, everyone came to a karst cave. The most important thing was that the cave was not dim, because some spars were shining brightly, not like night pearls. Yu Chi said that this is a karst cave rather than that it is a ruin with broken walls, filled with historical atmosphere, and there are also various buildings inlaid in the soil on the surrounding walls. Chaos frowned and looked at these broken ruins, touched lightly with his hands, and some of them drifted away in the wind. It's incredible. There is a ruin inside the red line. A few people turned around in the cave, and found nothing of value, just a piece of ruins, and the age is extremely old. Chaos was thoughtful, and instinctively told him that he had discovered a great secret. After all, this is too shocking. There are ruins inside the red line. I guess a bit deeper, are there towns in other parts of the red line? If this is the case, then red line is probably not formed naturally, so it's fun. Could it be Oda's foreshadowing? Sure enough, it's a magic trick for the pirate fans, and red line really has no secrets. Lao Sha, dig down and see, or dig around to see if there are no ruins. No problem. Crocodile was also very interested, and Betty's eyes glowed even more. 1 hour. 2 hours. 5 hours. Standing in a new ruined cave and looking at the prehistoric ruins in front of them, the four of them all thought. Has anyone ever lived in Redline? These ruins seem to be towns or even a kingdom. Crocodile burned cigars. No matter how you look at these ruins, they are man-made structures, although many of the ruins are strange. Why are these ruins in Redline? Chaos squeezed his chin and began to transform into Sherlock Holmes. Calculating from all the traces, he came up with an immature idea. Maybe the red line was not so high before. At that time, there might be towns and kingdoms on it. It was just that I didn't know what happened to cause its destruction. Then the red line kept getting higher and buried the ruins in the mud. I just don't know if this is natural or man-made. Is it really guessed by those pirate fans? Wait. Chaos suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He remembered seeing the analysis of 2 posters in a forum in the last life. There is a joke that Redline may have belonged to the D family 900 years ago, which is the huge kingdom that Ohara Kuraha said. Another said that Redline may be the ultimate island raftel, and perhaps a certain internal space has all the secrets. Chaos thinks that these 2 goods may be reasonable, but it is too difficult for Redline to prove it. You must know that there is Marie Joyce on it. Boss, do you want to continue? To be honest, seeing these ruins may be shocking at first, but if you see too much, you won't feel much. Crocodile, Betty, and Aquino didn't have much interest in history, and they were just a little interested in it at the beginning. No need. Chaos shook his head. He was only interested in B. As for the 100-year blank history, he was not very keen. If there is a chance, he doesn't mind to find out. For the 100-year history of the blank, I found a lot on the internet in my previous life. No matter what, there is the truth. Thunder Island, one of the islands indicated by the New World pointer, is a miraculous island that has been covered by thunder and lightning for many years. After more than 20 years, the supernova pirate group of monks will land on this island. As dusk approached, the golden Lamborghini was floating in the sky. Crocodile, Betty, and Aquino all looked at the dimly sky, and the entire sky was an island full of thunder and black clouds. Piece by piece of Chibai is a sea of thunder. Any small thunder is as thick as thighs, and the more dense and thick the thunder is toward the center. Some of them are completely red and white light beams, which can penetrate people just by looking at them. Boss, are we here? Crocodile raised his eyebrows with an ominous premonition. The same goes for Betty and Aquino. Didn't you say you were looking for pure gold? Why did you come here midway? Chaos smoked a cigar and looked at the falling thunder waterfall, very satisfied. It's not for anything else to come here, I just intend to practice cultivation. The news about the bear Stussy has not yet come, and the pure gold is actually not very anxious. Now it is useless even to go to the Marigel waters. The lanternfish is not so easy to appear. To know that pure gold is truly obtained, it will take more than 20 years before King Luffy comes out, which means that it will not be possible for other people to obtain pure gold within these 20 years. What's more, he has told Stussy to pay attention to the news in the Marigel waters. The reason why Chaos wants to practice is to see if he can raise the goddess by 300, 400, 500 meters, or even awaken. He knew that lanternfish liked gold very much. As long as there was enough gold in one place, he might be able to catch it. Otherwise, where to look in the vast, uncultivated sea? Chaos was already mentally prepared. If he couldn't get pure gold at this time, he would have to wait for the Straw Hat Pirates more than 20 years later. The plan cannot keep up with the changes, and there is no alternative. It would be great if you caught Miskina Oroja. The ring that guy wore contained a grain of real, pure gold, the size of a sesame seed, and the real gold could even lead to a lanternfish. I plan to practice here for 1 to 3 months. Chaos spit out smoke rings. Many pirate fans on this island said it was caused by people with thunder fruit ability, and they didn't know whether it was true or false. Aren't we going to find pure gold? Change your plan temporarily and go to the island. Really capricious. Betty complained. As soon as the golden Lamborghini landed on the island, a thick-armed thunder fell, crackling through the gold and extending to the 4 of them, tingling and irritating. Betty opened the door and got out of the car with a dark face, wisps of black smoke rising from her body. The hair was blown up. Snapped. Chaos snapped his fingers, and a gold twig fell from the sky, rolling a suitcase, and when it was opened, there were several Seastone bracelets inside. Wear them all. Is this done by Seastone? Boss, are you crazy? Betty stared, squatted down and picked up the bracelet. As a result, she collapsed on the ground weakly and almost couldn't get up. All the fuss. Crocodile showed contempt, his eyes full of contempt. I put on 2 bracelets calmly, and then did a few backflips and push-ups. After doing that, I looked at Betty's stunned gaze. After a contemptuous glance, he turned and looked towards the depths of the island, leaving Betty a lonely and stalwart. Back view. Betty was indeed taken aback. This guy is afraid that he is wearing a fake Seastone. Why didn't he lose strength like her? You can even backflip. Bang bang bang. 2 big gold pants and a gold 3-point pattern fell into the sky again, which was just the right size to float in front of the 3 of them. Put this on too, so that lightning strikes you more easily. As soon as Chaos spoke, several flashes of lightning struck the gold, crackling and making the hair burst. Boss. Do you want to murder? Betty's voice is raised high. This is the Seastone again, and it is the conductive gold 3-point type. Is it because they didn't die fast enough? There is so much nonsense. You are the second to last in terms of combat effectiveness. Although you are sexy, the combat effectiveness of our team is still very important. Chaos had a dark face, and this guy had more and more potential for talking. I have to complain about everything. Me? Second to last? Betty pointed at herself and questioned, as if she had misheard. Otherwise, if you wear Seastone, you can't even beat Oldton. Chaos turned Byakugan, and Achino had practiced with Seastone 1 step earlier than Betty. Although the time was short, at least he would not collapse directly to the ground like Betty. Betty turned to look at Achino with a face of seeing a ghost. The latter also put on 2 bracelets and put on big gold pants, standing beside Crocodile, preparing to go deeper into the island. Betty's face darkened. She just collapsed directly to the ground, and Achino was standing now even though it was swaying. It's very eye-catching. Humph. Betty snorted coldly and looked back at Chaos with no good expression. Do you still want to watch me change clothes, boss? Chaos flicked the soot, glanced up and down at Betty, and said without hesitation, I have not been so perverted to attack the people around me, and your charm is not enough to make me impulsive. Murderous look. Being naked is like 1,000 years of ice. Betty can't wait to stab Chaos to death. Is this doubting her charm? Damn it. She is Bello Beatty, she has a good look. Isn't it so unprepared? You practice first, I'll go out. Without giving Betty a chance to break out, Chaos got in the car and closed the door in one go. Soon Lamborghini disappeared on the sea level. Betty retracted her gaze fiercely and turned to look at Crocodile and Achino, who had actually ignored her marching into the depths of the island. Damn it. He didn't even peek. The more Betty thinks, the more angry. Has her charm really declined? Why are these 3 men indifferent? Obviously so beautiful as a flower, so material, so slim. 3 idiots who don't know how to appreciate. After cursing and changing into the golden 3-point style, Betty put on the Seastone very hard, and collapsed on the ground without waiting for a struggle. A few bursts of lightning struck, and then the high-frequency sound went up. On the other side, Chaos took a moment to return to the red line. Standing on the left hand of the goddess, the huge light wheel behind turned into a golden giant sword and was held by the goddess, and then began to engrave on the red line. Gaia Chaos, the richest man in the world, come here. For a time the sand was flying, and Chaos even used his armed color. Every word is engraved so huge that it can be seen clearly even from 10,000 meters away. The new world side has been carved, and the Grand Line side has not been spared either. Very naive, second-degree approach, but Chaos enjoys it. Even if it is the most loose B, it is also B. Not everyone has the ability to engrave these big characters on red line. What's more, he is the first man to engrave on red line in ancient and modern times. Based on this number 1, then B is also a fresh B. Even if someone imitates in the future, the first thing that comes to mind is his B. The world will always remember only the first, who will care about the second. Thinking about it this way, this B is no longer Lu, at least the sense of hierarchy has improved. By the time I finished engraving the red line on both sides, it was noon the next day. Chaos was too tired, but was satisfied with the masterpiece in the end. Back at Thor Island, Chaos looked at the miserable Betty, Patience. Now Betty's short purple hair exploded like an explosive head, and she was wearing a gold three-point style with wisps of black smoke, and her face was pale, like a frosted eggplant. It was almost the same as when I left, and it moved 20 to 30 meters in. The closer you are to the depths of the island, the more thunderbolt and the greater the power. What's more, Betty is still wearing a seastone. Without seastone, she would have gone deep into Thor's Isle. The feeling of weakness is really bad. Betty is now in the third stage, the second stage is Akino, slightly better than Betty. As for Crocodile, it has gone deep enough. The thunder that he has now endured is half a meter thick, which is almost at its limit. If it goes deeper, it may foam at the mouth and twitch on the ground. I think it's useless at all. Betty darkened her face, looking annoyed at the landing of Chaos. In her opinion, Chaos looked at her with naked mockery in his eyes. Whether it's useful, time will tell you. Chaos took a big stride and passed directly by Betty. Compared with the gold three-point pose on Betty, Chaos wears more gold, which is simply a walking lightning rod. One after another, the thunder crackled and fell. Chaos was really uncomfortable at first, but slowly began to adapt. The cells all over the body are numb, but then they become active. For Chaos, whose life was returned by the Master, the use of thunder to stimulate the cells to cultivate is simply adding more wings and getting twice the result with half the effort. The next practice is very simple. During the day, a crowd of people were baptized by thunder and gathered together at night. Chaos explained the 6 forms to Akino and Betty. Not to mention that all 6 forms were learned. The most basic shave and moonwalk must be master. In addition, there are armed colors and seeing and hearing colors. From time to time, everyone will learn from each other, and of course there will be Crocodile's general class. Tenten passed. It was gone for a month in a trance. Today Thor Island welcomes a new member. Where is the boss? Stussy is still dressed up, with a hip dress, gold earrings, a top hat, a small handbag, and a white silk draped behind her back, with the queen fan in her fairy spirit. Stepping on the red high heels, the white and slender legs are displayed vividly. If this kind of leg is placed in the previous life, it will make people play for hundreds of years. The boss hasn't been out for 5 days. Crocodile was naked to the top, revealing the 8-pack abs and bulging chest muscles. The bottom body was still the big gold pants, and the big back was still meticulously combed. At this moment, he pointed his finger at the thunder sea deep in the island. At present, the deepest is Chaos, the second is him, the third is Akino, and the fourth is still Betty. How did you come? The matter is temporarily finished. Stussy turned his head to look into the depths of the lightning flashing, 2 figures approaching one another from far away. Although it was the first time that the 2 parties met, they all met in the press. You are the Queen of Joy, Stussy. For no reason, when Betty and Stussy looked at each other, the surrounding atmosphere became deadly. Betty was the first to speak, but her tone was arrogant. The beauty is the Queen of Dancing Bello Beatty. The Queen of Stussy, Fan Nakishly, has dealt with the red light district for more than a month, but she is cruel and doesn't know how many indirect or direct people have been killed. You are not as pretty in the news. Betty had a pity on her face, she didn't think the woman in front of her could threaten her. She doesn't lose her face, temperament, and figure. You too. Stussy raised her chin slightly, looking down at Betty completely. One mountain cannot be too beautiful. Try it? Certainly. The sky was filled with swords, lights and swords, and Betty took off the seastone bracelet, and the two women collided 10 meters away without any warning. Not far away, Crocodile and Aquino watched the play calmly. This month, apart from cultivation, it is cultivation. Watching two women fight now, just to pass the boring time. These two women are not good. Quite curious who is stronger. As for the spring light from the fight between the two women, stop it. In the eyes of Crocodile and Aquino, there are two tigresses fighting each other. As a person, or a man, would you be interested in two tigresses? The species are different. At this time, in the depths of Thunder Island, the ground and some rocky mountains were black, and the billowing firmament of black clouds slashed down the thunder pillars, ranging from 1 meter thick to 5 meters thick. Because of being beaten by thunder all year round, the ground and rocks in this area are particularly hard. It is not only very heavy, but also highly conductive. Not much different from gold. In a clearing, a barren mountain was constantly going up and down. Chaos wore only a pair of big gold pants and was doing push-ups with the barren mountain on his back. Sweat evaporated as soon as he appeared. The thundervolt here is not low. Even a small sea king's can be cleaved. And here has not yet reached the deepest part of Thunder Island. In just 1 month, Chaos physical fitness has risen to a new level again. In addition, the cells are baptized by thunder and are destroyed until the regeneration cycle. If the average person is absolutely unable to carry it, but Chaos has a life to return, only a full meal can speed up the metabolism, so that the foundation will become more and more solid. Rumble. The barren mountain was left aside, and the whole earth was shocked. Chaos stood up and stretched, his 8-pack abdominal muscles are distinct, bathed in thunder, and his muscles are as strong as a rock. Turning around and looking at the direction of the camp, only an afterimage was left in place, slowly dissipating. Boom. The two long legs touched each other, and the wind pressure was splashing all the way. The two women were competing for combat effectiveness, and they were also competing for long legs. All of them were afterimages. The most used attack is kicking. All kinds of serial kicks, side kicks, and rotating kicks. The absolute areas exposed are colorful. Women and women fighting are different, and they must be pleasing to the eye. Crocodile and Aquino watched very enthusiastically, not because of the springtime, but because of the fight between the two women. What's the matter with them? Chaos appeared next to Aquino out of thin air, looking at Betty and Stussy, who seemed to be hitting real fire. Two crazy women, just do it like this. Both Crocodile and Aquino were smoking cigars. They didn't need to turn their heads, just listening to the voice knew that Chaos was coming. The queen fan of Stussy is getting bigger and bigger. Chaos also frustrated and smoked a cigar. He hadn't seen him for more than a month. The powerful queen fan on Stussy became more serious and full of personality. Betty's pungent and upright personality is also very clear. Not to mention that a mountain cannot tolerate two beautiful things, even male and female. Everyone's self-esteem is very swollen, no one is convinced, even Aquino. When it comes to mental abnormalities, it is none other than Aquino. Now it seems to be schizophrenic, sometimes reticent, but sometimes extremely violent and brutal, full of fighting frenzy. Anyway, none of them are normal. Boom. Half an hour has passed, and the battle between the two women is not over yet. Here Chaos sits on a golden chair, in front of a long golden table with a lot of food and wine. Crocodile and Aquino drank red wine, smoked a cigarette and watched the fight between the two women, yawning from time to time. Chaos is reading the newspaper brought by Stussy, which is some news this month. It's nothing new, it's just how much the pirate is offering rewards, and Marine has caught the pirate again. It's pretty plain. The biggest news should be Kaido and Explosion Kun. The Golden Lion didn't know why it got involved with Garp. As for the Roger Pirates, there was no news. There are also some news about Marine's 3 major rookies Sakazuki, Pelusalino, and Kuzan. At the same time, there are also some news about the future powerhouses of the Whitebeard Pirates Phoenix, Diamond JOZ, Foil Beasta, Big Mom Pirates Charlotte Kata Curry, Cracker and so on. Stussy brought a lot of newspapers, most of which are about some pirates offering rewards. Kaios should pass the time, he still saw many acquaintances inside. For example, Buffalo Arquette, who was in the naive place of Post Island. Chaos also gave away a golden mace, and now he appeared in New World to kill a pirate who offered a reward of 300 million, and he raised it a bit. Nickname. There are Slipper Diaries, Burst Bear Trusha, Maker Kakot, Obsidian Magica, Leopard King Tichel, Madara Horsekiller, Octopus Rotes, etc. Some came to New World, and some were still on the Grand Line. Holding a cigar with one hand, Chaos looked at the last piece of information in the reward, both of which had something to do with one person. Bartholomew Kuma, a reward of 96 million Baileys. The reward picture is very young, almost at the age of 20 to 21. This guy seems to have left the kingdom of Sorbet and officially went to sea as a pirate. Maybe he just debuted, so he hasn't got the title of Violent Coon yet. The reward is only 96 million Baileys. I want to go out. Putting down the news, Chaos took a sip of the red wine. Crocodile withdrew his gaze from the battle, looked at the newspaper in front of Chaos, frowned. Boss, is this a new member? Before the person arrived, Crocodile had already determined that this guy was the fifth leader in their group. Right. Chaos nodded. The bear's ability is very important. It is simply bug ability to bounce away fatigue, pain, and injury. It can be used as a doctor, or the kind that can recover quickly. At present, the richest group lacks players in this state. With Betty's buff, it is simply a plug-in. As for the dragon cutting Chaos didn't have any pressure at all. Betty has been cut off anyway, he doesn't mind cutting off the bear as well. It seems that the Revolutionary Army has many strong men, and he likes those with distinct personalities or pervert. For example, the she-male king Ivankov, the hormonal fruit seems to belong to the state fruit, and it can also change the gender. Kyo's eyes lit up slightly, and it seemed that he still needed to go to the kingdom of Kamabaka, which is the kingdom of she-males. He never discriminates against people. Someone once said that Crocodile was a woman, and Chaos really wanted to see the look of Crocodile's women's clothing, but no, it turned into a woman. Or maybe Betty and Stussy become men. The more I think about it, the more I feel. Boss. What do you want to do? A cold air rushed to the sky, and Crocodile's hair was exploded, and the goosebumps could not stop shaking. He found that Chaos had been staring at him strangely, and his eyes were a bit oozing. From time to time, Pervert smiled from the corner of his mouth. This was the first time he saw Chaos with this expression. This time we will add 2 new members, and Oldton will come with me. Kaios regained his senses, took a sip of red wine and looked at Aquino. He intends to take Aquino out for a walk alone. This guy is now schizophrenic. Don't look at it now, but if he gets crazy, he is a fighting maniac. Do it if you don't accept it. In addition, Aquino made the most progress this month. Isn't it one? Crocodile was a little stunned, but it's not surprising when he thinks that Chaos sometimes thinks out one after another. Not to mention the 2, even if Chaos gets to strengthen the company, Lao Shah is still the second in command of the richest group. Old qualifications. Change the plan temporarily. Chaos drank the red wine, got up and looked at Betty and Stussy who were still fighting, and was about to leave. Boss, let me go. Oldton is still almost on fire. Crocodile also wanted to go out for a stroll, but he didn't go out arrogantly for a month, so he was panicked. You stay. Don't let the 2 of them fight real fire. Crocodile turned his head to look at Stussy and Betty who were fighting, his face collapsed all at once. Women are trouble. New World, Sycan Island. It is an island rich in products, the most famous of which is hot springs. Because there is an active volcano on this island, the locals use the volcano to circle hot spring lakes to attract tourists, so this island is also called the Hot Spring Town. It seems that there are a lot of these hot spring islands in Pirate World, no wonder. In fact, the location of this island is very special. In the original book, Zephyr wants to destroy 3 islands to trigger the destruction of New World by the submarine volcano, one of which is Sycan Island. As night fell, under the night sky dotted with stars, 2 figures stood high in the sky and looked down. The lights are dim, young men and women in bathrobes can be seen everywhere, hotels are also lively, pirates eat meat and drink, and some red light districts and casinos are full of people. It took a day to get here. After the bear is conquered, you must take a bubble bath. It's time to relax after intensive training this month. Relaxation is the right way. All weather seeing and hearing colors are thoroughly aroused, and in the perception of Chaos, the city below has a panoramic view. Good luck. Chaos and Aquino stepped on the moonwalk, waiting for the scene to appear over the open-air hot spring in the backyard of a hotel. The bear below was expressionless and had already walked out of the hot spring. Obviously, Chaos was also discovered in advance. The Golden Emperor. Seeing Chaos and Aquino falling from the sky, the bear felt a crisis. Regarding the costume of the Golden Emperor, I have seen everything in the ocean more or less, after all, it is the only one. Too gorgeous and high profile. I'm afraid that others won't recognize it. Bear, become the most arrogant man in the world with me. Chaos throws an olive branch, I came here specially for you. The bear did not speak, and looked serious without a smile. Take off the gloves to reveal the fleshy hands. This action has explained everything. It is impossible for him to catch it without hesitation. The current Bartholomew Kuma does not have the title of Violent Coon, but it is definitely not a good stubborn. When he became 7 warlords of the sea, he was a cruel and domineering pirate, who didn't have the young and frivolous youth. Boom. A heat wave set off Chaos's golden goose feather coat, and the originally taciturn Aquino showed a nervous smile in vain, grinning with rows of big fangs, his whole body flushed like a round of the sun, and disappeared in one fell swoop and rushed out. The other side of Aquino's split came out. In this state of mind, just do it. Either be killed, or kill others. The blazing high temperature rises, the air is rippling, and the ground cracks and melts visible to the naked eye. Aquino used the shave to appear in front of the bear, his right fist clenched a piece of red, hot steam wafting from all over his body, blasting mighty in one fell swoop. The bear was expressionless and did not panic. Call out. An afterimage was left on the spot, and the bear disappeared out of thin air, appearing behind Aquino and pressing down with his right hand in one fell swoop. If you want to travel, where do you want to go? Aquino reacted very quickly, and disappeared with shaving for the first time. He felt threatened. 6,000 degrees Celsius. With a nervous smile, Aquino's body temperature rose again, which made the bear frown. The ground in a radius of 100 meters has melted and turned into liquid. Fighting in such a high temperature environment is very unfavorable for him. Jingle bell. Rumble. The sound of the golden horse and the iron horse sounded from high above, and the locks of the sky with thick thighs were nailed to the ground, surrounding them all around to form a birdcage, with a wide range. What is that? Gold birdcage. Someone is fighting. The appearance of birdcage shocked more than half of the island at once. After all, such a big movement is hard to not even notice. It turned out to be the Golden Emperor. Many people appeared in all directions, and when they saw Chaos sitting in the air on the golden throne, all of them were full of greed and excitement. Now the sea is rumored that the Golden Emperor is the richest individual. The most wealthy self-employed in the world. Sure enough, it is well deserved. Birdcage alone is worth hundreds of billions of Baileys. Ah ha ha. The Golden Emperor is mine. Many pirates lost their minds and rushed towards Chaos. If there is no gold birdcage, these people may be a little more sober, but now so much gold is in front of them, as long as you do it, you can get it, who can hold it? Desire has dominated reason. Whether it is arrogant or stupid, the world will never lack. Brothers, catch him for me. As long as we catch the Golden Emperor, we can become the richest people in the world, and the entire sea will be ours. Kill. I'm going to make the Golden Emperor. The greedy atmosphere has been set off, and more pirate thugs are starting to rush towards Chaos. Facing these pirate thugs who rushed over, Chaos sat on the golden throne, with Erlang's legs and one hand propped on his chin, and the gold earrings were swaying. With a light pressure on the index finger, there was a blast of noise in the sky above his head. Ding bang bang. A handful of golden weapons fell, all bombarding them like bullets. Dust splashed and gravel pierced through the entire venue, and various screams came and went one after another. What? Help! I don't want to die. One after another corpses was nailed to the ground, and the pungent and bloody smell began to spread. There were stumps and broken arms and viscera everywhere. If you dare to shoot, you must be prepared for death. The first wave of attacks ended, and nearly 100 bodies fell in the tattered ruins. All the blood-stained 18 like golden weapons were suspended in the air and fell into the air. He has only one person, so what are we afraid of so many of us? Just grab him and you will have everything by then. The blood and the corpse didn't make the pirate thugs who licked blood with their knife edges to retreat, but aroused their brutality. Many pirate captains climbed up and shouted, and people from all directions charged again. Chaos just glanced at it, focusing all his eyes on the battle between Birdcage and the bear. As for these little guys, with the swords and lights, they're like rows of wheat waiting to be harvested. What waves? Pressure gun. The afterimage flashed, and a white bear's paw pressure shield appeared on the bear's right hand. As long as it hits, it will form a powerful shockwave. Even steel can be easily destroyed. Aquino's face was full of madness, his body was constantly sprayed with high-temperature steam, and his right hand was red with a dazzling light, and he blasted the bear's chest in one fell swoop regardless of the bear's attack. This is an injury for injury, very cruel and crazy play. Poor child, it was not like this before. Boom. The whole land was shaken. Bear paws and scarlet palms were printed on each other's chest one after another. A white shockwave rushed out from behind Aquino. A red heat burst out from behind the bear, the surrounding melted and hot ground exploded, and both of them opened their mouths. The blood spurted out and exploded continuously. No one gets a bargain. The bear climbed up from the ruins and flung his right hand against his chest. A mini white bear paw appeared behind him with bloodshot blood. As the mini bear paw was removed from the body, the bear's face suddenly returned to normal. Huh. The bear disappeared. Soon. Just like teleportation. In fact, the bear's movement is not instantaneous, but uses the fruit's ability to compress the surrounding air and surround the whole body, reducing friction to achieve extreme speed. It is not the kind of shuttle space or real teleportation. Appearing behind Akino, the bear grasped the bloody bear's paw pressure shield, which was the injury he had just suffered. He wants to return the damage to Akino. This ability is unreasonable. Does Akino persuade? I may have retreated before changing, but now my schizophrenia has caused a big change in my personality. Persuaded? What is that? Do it if you don't accept it. A crimson halo appeared in the fist with his right hand, and the temperature had risen to 8,000 degrees C, just like pinching a small sun, directly stiffening with the bear. The degree of brutality does not lose anyone. The dazzling white light radiated from the center, and the melting ground under their feet collapsed, and a large amount of high-temperature steam enveloped the site. Boom boom boom. The roaring air pressure continued to spread, shaking the entire golden birdcage. The heat waves swept through, and Akino spurted blood on the ground, rammed all the way and left a magma ravine, lying at the end and was seriously injured. This month, Akino raised the temperature to 8,000 degrees C and learned to shave and moonwalk at the same time. He was also initially awakened from seeing and hearing, except that the armed color has not yet lost his complexion. Now the result has actually been separated. Akino is not an opponent of the bear's. Not to mention that the bear can eject damage, but the armed color has the upper hand, and it consumes too much energy to kill Akino. And speed does not prevail. The heat wave lifted the steam away, exposing the bear's body. At this moment, the bear opened his hands, and the meatball of the bear paw was constantly beating. Every time it bounced, the surrounding air was being squeezed, and a huge air bear paw was constantly shrinking. In the end it became the size of a slap and was enveloped in the shape of a calyx with the bear's hands. Akino was full of steam, his body was already red, a wave of heat formed a halo and pushed it horizontally, and the temperature rose to ultimate. With his right hand grabbing behind him, a cloud of red light surrounded the steam, the size of a full 10 meters, like the real sun being caught. The two looked at each other and disappeared in place at almost the same moment. Bear's paw impact. Sun Apollo. Time is slow at this moment. The bear is holding the mini blazing white bear paw, and Akino is holding the crimson sun, colliding together like wild beasts, and the bright white light shines in the night. The entire venue was deaf. Everyone closed their eyes subconsciously. When they opened it, a vast mushroom cloud rose up, and half of the island began to shake. Even chaos condensed his gaze. The gold birdcage swelled rapidly, and finally broke and flew into the sky suspended. The overwhelming air pressure set off magma on the surface, tumbling over a square kilometer, and I don't know how many people died. The mushroom cloud rises and expands. The billowing heat wave is so hot that everything burns wherever it goes. Chaos sat on the golden throne, with black vertical hair and gold earrings flying, never moving a step to watch the scene of the center gradually dissipating. The bear and Akino stood 10 meters apart, bleeding from their mouths. Very embarrassed. It's just that the smell of meat floats on the bear. The ground around him was sunken, full of hot burning magma, and the bear's feet covered with the armed color could temporarily resist it, and it would be very detrimental to him if it continued. Opposite Akino wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and the surrounding temperature was roasting the air. Ordinary people might be burned to death by that temperature before they got close. The closer they were to Akino, the higher the temperature. He raised his foot and started walking towards the bear. He hasn't lost yet. Unless he loses the power to act, or kills him, otherwise the battle will continue. As long as you can't die, just do it. The bear looked at Akino, who was approaching, with his right palm slapped on his chest, and a mini bear paw appeared on his back again. These were injuries in his body. With these injuries separated, the bear's face looked slightly better. It's just that this kind of injury can't be bounced continuously, which means that he can bounce several times in a row. If he hurts others, he can only bounce once in a short time. The damage to the bear paw this time was even greater than the first time, and there were more bloodshots inside. The bear compressed to the size of a slap again, and blasted out in one fell swoop when Akino approached. The horror explosion towers again, a large amount of magma is flying like a fountain, and the battle continues. What's the situation now? Many pirate thugs in the distance are holding binoculars. They can't get close to that area. Even if they are so far away, they can feel the heat wave, and individual sweats are almost cooked through. Only the Golden Emperor can be seen at close range. The Sun King is still fighting, and the Golden Emperor is watching the battle. Who is fighting the Sun King? It seems to be Bartholomew Kuma with a reward of 96 million. Bartholomew Kuma. Never heard of it. It's a bit powerful. It's hard to separate from the Sun King, who is offering a reward of 210 million. We can't just get close. Many pirate thugs looked at the center, where the crimson area is simply inside the volcano, and most people simply can't hold it. Boom. Heat waves burned one after another, and the battle lasted for 10 minutes. It ended with Aquino lying in the magma with bruises all over his body and losing his fighting power, and the bear still kept his surplus. But it looks very embarrassing. Flap. The golden throne moved horizontally over the magma pit, and Chaos slapped his palm and looked at the bear. He did not expect that the bears of this period had already developed the fleshball fruit to such a point. Although much worse than the future, it has begun to develop in an all-round way. The bear did not speak, and opened his hands to compress the air again, and he could see bear paws the size of a villa appearing on his head. As the compression continued to shrink, Chaos did not take the opportunity to attack. Still sitting on the throne with Erlang's legs tilted, his left hand propped his chin and his right hand flicked the gold earrings. That king's contempt and arrogance, full of pride and self-confidence. The current bear is young and energetic, and he is so domineering that he doesn't run away, but instead wants to attack Chaos. Really. Young people are so proud and arrogant. Bear's paw impact. Disappearing out of thin air, the bear was already behind Chaos when it reappeared, and the mini-bear's paw in his hand was photographed in one fell swoop. The corners of Chaos's mouth are outlined, from head to toe beginning to gold, as the iron body uses muscles to bulge, and at the same time is armed with color coverage, and the golden throne is automatically integrated into a golden armor, so that Chaos folds out in a short time the thickest armor. This is an attempt to fight the bears hard. Nothing is more arrogant than this. It's just to look down on bears, and it's more rampant than ignoring them. In an instant. Shrouded with dazzling white light, the whole world seemed to have lost its sound. A burning sky exploded and gradually expanded to form a shockwave, which rolled up the magma surface in one fell swoop, and quickly destroyed everything by pushing it horizontally. After everything was restored, a big hole appeared. Cracks torn around it, and all magma flowing inside. The bear stood on a raised crust, his chest undulating and panting, his eyes kept looking at the buried ruins. Boom. The ruins were lifted off, and a figure walked out of it. The corner of Chaos's mouth was bleeding, the golden armor on his body was tattered, and the bee outfit was very successful. It just vomited blood. Not a big problem. It's totally bearable. The goldenization subsided, the vertical golden hair and pupils returned to normal, the tattered golden armor was suspended in the air, and Chaos raised his head and pressed his right hand down. Suddenly there was a sonic boom from the sky, and then the earth shook. The surface behind the bear was constantly cocked and burst, an air wave almost lifted him away, and at the same time the light from the magma began to dim, as if there was a giant behind it, and the cloud cover could vaguely see the graceful and colorful shadow figure. The goddess. Great wealth. When the pirate thugs far away looked at the sacred and inviolable goddess through the binoculars, their blood continued to rise, and the cells all over their bodies were jumping fast. 170 meters tall, plus a golden halo rotating behind. As long as you get her, even the kingdom can easily buy it. Everyone is crazy. Greed is eroding reason. That is real gold, like a mountain, you only need to grab the Golden Emperor and you can reach it. Starve the timid to death. In the face of huge wealth, what can fate do? It's not uncommon to ask for money but not life. So another wave of pirate thugs went to death. But now the bears are the most stressed. The head burst constantly, the goddess pressed down with a palm, and the mountain shook in an instant. The perfect face turned to the left, the bear appeared on a hill, and the golden wheel behind the goddess burst and turned into various swords, guns and swords, like bullets shot through the air. Ding ding rumbling. The entire tattered surface was bombarded wildly, and the bear moved at high speed to avoid it. But at this moment, the hairs exploded, and the icy crisis rushed to the sky, and the whole heart seemed to stop beating. 6 Styles Emperor gun. Surrounded by a large amount of white steam, Chaos appeared in front of the bear with his hands like calyxes, the force of terror was compressed in it, and the landslides burst out. The bear had no time to dodge. The timing that Chaos found was exactly the moment when the bear appeared, and he couldn't even make armed and passive defenses. Slowly, the bear began to twist his face. The whole body was bent into dried shrimps. The mouth and nose could not stop the spurting blood. The ground surface of 100 meters in a radius of 100 meters exploded and teared. A shock wave appeared behind the bear. All disappeared everywhere. In the end, Kongjuang Avenue is out of sight. The spider web crater continues to expand and collapse, and the bear has long since disappeared. Chaos withdrew from his life and returned, and appeared constantly at the end of Broad Avenue. The bear was sunken in the mountains and his face was covered with blood. The magnificent chest was sunken, and the blood he vomited was all with visceral fragments. Seeing such a miserable bear, Chaos gently waved his hand, and a piece of gold powder began to pass through his skin into his body, and the manipulation of the gods took effect. On the side of the goddess, a tributary of gold rolled up a kino that was attacked by a large number of pirates and mobs. As a large swath of knives, guns, swords and halberds fell, all that was left were corpses and ruins. The rising sun. At an altitude of 1,000 meters, the white clouds are vast and boundless. The golden sunlight is pouring in, soft and warm. The huge shadow pierced through the clouds and left a channel. The lens zoomed in and turned out to be a 5-clawed golden dragon. Both the fierce dragon head and the huge body had a strong sense of impact. Twisting the body as if there is real life. On the back of the huge dragon head, a thin golden sun umbrella and golden seat were sitting there. Chaos smoked a cigar and drank red wine, and Aquino was also sitting on a chair beside him with a pale face and eating. As for the bear, he was lying on the ground in a coma. After defeating the bear, Chaos replenished some supplies on Saikan Island and left. He is now heading to the kingdom of Kamabaka, the kingdom of she-males on the Grand Line. Since you are awake, sit down and eat something. Kaios shook his glass and glanced at the bear who had opened his eyes. The bear stood up blankly, very alert. Eat some food before talking. As Chaos finished speaking, the bear found that he could not control his body, so he walked to the golden chair and sat down automatically, which made the bear hang his whole heart. What did you do to me? The bear's eyes were full of hostility, as if it would turn into a brown bear and pounce on Chaos in the next moment. Go straight to the topic. You now have two options, one is to join the richest man group, and the other is death. Chaos took a sip of his cigar, and didn't want to waste time by turning around. The bear was calm and didn't know what he was thinking. No anger or excitement, like thinking. After almost 10 seconds, Shang looked at Chaos. I'll join. He couldn't die before the world government collapsed. The man in front of him has unparalleled financial resources, and if he doesn't deal with the world government, he may have a better chance of being destroyed. Chaos frowned and stared into the bear's eyes, who was still calm. It's really an accident. No matter what your purpose is, welcome. First eat something to replenish, and then eject the injury. Chaos really didn't expect that the bear would be so happy that he promised, and he had only done one not long ago. But it doesn't matter. No matter what the bear's purpose is, Chaos has the confidence to suppress it. The next step is simple. After the bear eats something, it uses its ability to bounce away its own injuries and Aquino's injuries. Although it hasn't recovered to its heyday, it still has 7 or 8 points. It only takes a little time to recover everything, and when that happens, he will be a good man again. Kingdom of Kamabaka, located on the Grand Line. The future is the base camp of the new human she-male paradise, and now it has the reputation of Second Daughter Island. On this island, people live with all kinds of pervert, and they are also famous on the Grand Line. When it comes to she-males, the first thing the world thinks of is the kingdom of Kamabaka. The whole island is very peculiar, like an enlarged version of a heart-shaped mushroom, guarded by a few small heart-shaped mushrooms, surrounded by a few heart-shaped rainbows. Most things on the island are like hearts. Although Kamabaka is a kingdom, it's actually not big. There are less than 300,000 she-males living on the island, which is formed by constantly absorbing she-males from all over the world. Although the number is small, the neighboring countries dare not provoke it. Because the people on this island are not normal people, but pervert. On the contrary, the combat effectiveness is extremely strong. Even the most common she-male can be one enemy to 100, and you can imagine what kind of terrifying country this is. Moreover, people with normal mentality would avoid these she-males, fearing being assimilated. Rows of pink heart-shaped buildings make up the town, and there are many men with heavy makeup coming and going on the streets, one by one wearing feminine revealing suits, stockings, leopard prints, high heels, etc., revealing lush body hair. Just looking at it, it's creepy. In the future, Sanji has a reason to call this hell. A normal man, stay here for a day. Do not. Even an hour will not be able to sustain suicide. But Sanji resisted for 2 years, and was forced to run away from Moonwalk. It can be said that he is a cruel person who can't bear the ordinary people. Dongji Residential Area. In a pink heart-shaped house, a man with dark purple explosive hair, thick eyelashes, light blue eyeshadow and purple lip gloss, wearing mesh stockings and tight-fitting ultra-low-cut jumpsuit, is a man for the time being. After all, this guy can switch between genders at will, it doesn't matter whether it is male or female. He is cooking his favorite roast pig offal. Emporio Ivankov, one of the cadres of the future revolutionary army. Paramisha. Hormonal fruit ability. The she-male that Chaos was looking for. Now Ivankov has not yet become the queen of the kingdom of Kamabaka, at best he is just a ladyboy. The country that is dying in the future has not been rescued yet. Suddenly, a high BGM resounded under the sky, magnificent and majestic, like a surging river that was unstoppable, and the sky that was originally clear and clear began to darken. A series of black and red thunders slammed down. No matter how you look at the weather, it is abnormal. The whole street rioted. A large number of she-males raised their heads and looked at the thunderous sky. With such a big movement, Ivankov also walked out of the house, staring at the discolored sky of the wind and clouds with a damn look. But this is not the most shocking. When the huge golden dragon's head was dropped from the black clouds, it was bathed in black and red thunder, and the picture was earth-shattering. Dragon. How could it be the legendary dragon? All the demon opened their mouths, watching the golden dragon bathing in the thunder and falling, and the impact became more intense when it hovered over their heads. Someone. That is. When the dragon was hovering, the sound of 3 footsteps sounded from the back of the dragon, and finally stood on the eyebrows of the dragon and looked down at the audience. Click. A black and red thunder slashed down, illuminating the faces of the 3 Kaios. Gold goose feather coat, gold dragon tattoo, gold beach pants, gold flip-flops, gold light wheel, gold earrings, such a fancy dress. Who else is besides the Golden Emperor in the sea? And this way of playing is simply not too high profile. It's Golden Emperor Gaia Chaos. Why did the Golden Emperor come here? Most people recognized Chaos. Now the Golden Emperor is the most extravagant in the sea. Look at that golden dragon. F*K is all high purity gold, which is more than 100 meters. At present, there is only the Golden Emperor who has the ability to show off his wealth. Huh. A beard of the golden dragon shot out and went straight to Ivankov, who was stunned. In the pervert dress with heavy makeup, Kaios saw it at first glance. The head is bigger than the body, and it's still exploding, even in the crowd of she-males. Very spicy eyes. Hip-hop, what's the situation? Seeing the flying golden dragon beard, Ivankov stared at the bull's eye, and left the place and dodged dangerously. The Golden Emperor wants to shoot her? Ivankov. Emperor Golden. What do you want to do? Many ladyboys put on fighting poses, staring at Chaos. Seeing this, Ivankov still has a bit of status in the kingdom. After all, he has acted as a doctor by virtue of hormonal fruits, and in the future, he will be the strongest monster king in the history of Relief Legend. Boom. Chaos stared slightly, conquerors pouring out. Wherever it went, the wind swept through it, and the vigilant ladyboys all rolled their eyes and fell to the ground. Only a few of them were able to stay in a coma. Conquerors is mighty, plundering freely among the crowd. Ivankov's face condensed, his scalp exploded and he felt a great crisis. Jingle bell. The crisp and bright metal collision sounded, and the golden locks of the sky flew away, coming violently with the sound of breaking through the sky. Death winks. Gritting his teeth to withstand Conqueror's shock, Ivankov blinked away from the place, and a shock wave formed in an instant, and the first lock of heaven broke apart. But, boom. The thick stone slab streets burst one after another, and one skylock after another shot into the surface, and then the surrounding space was stretched straight to block the surrounding space. From beginning to end, Chaos never moved. Aquino and Shang didn't do anything beside them either. Looking at the golden birdcage gradually forming, they were silent. Emperor Golden, you are deceiving too much. A large number of she-males flooded in the distance, and they should be soldiers of the she-male kingdom. The lead lady wears a crown, a red 3-point pose, and white socks with suspenders. He is stepping on Hang Tiangao and applying eyeshadow and lipstick. He is the queen of the kingdom of Kamabaka. It's a pity that compared with Ivankov, it's still not enough to pervert your eyes. Chaos stood with his hand holding his hand, the golden goose feather coat flying behind his back, the light wheel turned, The black vertical hair and gold earrings fluttered, ignoring the crowds of she-males, and with a light wave of his left hand, the golden dragon at his feet lifted into the sky, all separated into 18. The weapon fell down into the sky, aiming at everyone on the ground. The scene made the monsters creepy. Emperor Golden, what exactly do you want to do? Ivankov stood in the birdcage and looked at the weapon in the sky. Invite you to join the richest man group. What? Ivankov was stunned. Even the other ladyboys were stunned. That's how you invited it? Do it as soon as you come up. No matter how you look at it, it's always troublesome. That's it. Chaos didn't speak, just looked at Ivankov. Why didn't you say it earlier? I agreed. Ivankov was very bachelor, he didn't even hesitate. Please, this is the richest person in the world, and following him is equivalent to embarking on the peak of the she-male. What's more, Ivankov planned to go to sea. This is the pillow that came just as soon as I was ready to fall asleep. As for discipline. How could Ivankov have discipline? He is pervert, okay. As a new human, you just need to pervert enough. Ivankov's swiftness also surprised Chaos for a little bit. This guy didn't even think about it. Looking at that, he was anxious to join the richest group. Don't she-males look at the same problems as normal people? Chaos gently waved his hand, and all the gold lifted off into the goddess, which was more impactful than the golden dragon. After all, the picture of the goddess is too strong. In this way, Ivankov followed Chaos. The walk is smooth and fun. Only a group of monsters are left looking at each other. Isn't the contrast too great? It's sloppy. 1,000 meters high in the sky, the girl of God's day fluttering in her dress, her hands stacked on her chest, Chaos, Aquino, and the bear sitting on golden chairs drinking red wine. As for Ivankov, following the arms of the goddess all the way up, tapping while walking. After returning to the original place, he sat down on the golden chair and knocked on the golden table in front of him. Hip hop. That. Call me boss. Chaos is very indifferent. Ivankov, the ladyboy, is completely self-familiar, and doesn't think of himself as an outsider at all, and integrates quickly. It's really a weird thing. Boss, where are we going? Marine base. Chaos intends to deal with the identity of the bear and Ivankov. Yep. Ivankov's heavy makeup eyes stared. Proof of identity for you. Chaos didn't explain much. 2 days later, Thunder Island. A long gold table was placed on the ground, with gold chairs facing each other, and the first seated was Chaos. Crocodile, Stussy, and Betty are sitting on the right, and Aquino, Bear, and Ivankov are sitting on the left. They are all looking down at the latest issue of the news. Chaos propped his chin with one hand, smoking a cigarette and emptied a little. He has resolved the identities of the bear and Ivankov. Power. The richest group name, Bartholomew Kuma. Title. Storm Coon positioning. Bug in charge. Reward. 96 million motto. Social I bear brother, Bug is justice. Devil fruit. And Ivankov's, power, the richest group. Name. Emporio Ivankov. Title. She-male king, queen of pervert. Positioning. Pervert in charge. Reward, 53 million. Motto. Social ladyboy sister, pervert is justice. Devil fruit. It is not much different from the reward format of Crocodile at all. This is an attitude of Marine offering a reward, which Chaos personally discussed. From this news report, it means that Ivankov and Shang have been labeled as the richest group, as well as the name of his golden emperor Gaia Chaos. Ahem. Chaos coughed, letting all his eyes focus on him. Come on. Everyone welcomes Lao Shang and Lao Wan. From now on, they will belong to the same group. Chaos picked up the red wine glass, breaking some weird atmosphere. The boss has spoken out, so it's natural to be a little brother to save face. The 6 people picked up the red wine and looked at each other with different looks. The bear is okay. Although as taciturn as Aquino, he at least looks like a normal person. But Ivankov. Really a bit spicy eyes. Neither Crocodile nor Betty was pleasing to the eye. Stussy kept a polite and reserved smile, but the cold queen fan exuded all over her body, so there was nothing on her face. But Crocodile and Betty were different, and looked at Ivankov boldly and unhappily. Slightly nauseous. Take a look at the newspaper and find out that pervert is responsible for the positioning. Very much in line with the actual situation. But boss is enough. How can you recruit such a pervert with spicy eyes? Isn't this lowering the overall appearance of the group? Betty is very upset, and so is Crocodile. Hip hop, what are you doing looking at me like this? Do you want to change my gender? I can have surgery for free. Ivankov blinked his thick eyelashes, and easily felt the hostility and uncomfortableness on Crocodile and Betty. After all, they did not cover up. Regardless of the look in the eyes or the expression, there is disgust and disgust. Who is Ivankov? That is pervert. She also has her own arrogance. Make up his mind to help these two men switch their genders so that they can see how powerful the new humans are. Do you want to die? It's an ugly fool who doesn't know whether it's a man or a woman. Betty slapped the table suddenly, stood up and stepped on the golden stool with her right leg, staring angrily and looking at Ivankov murderously, as if she would do it in the next moment. The pungent reaction was very irritable. It really frightened Chaos. Ivankov froze for a moment, then stood up and stared angrily. You are the so-called sexy person. But that's all. When my old lady becomes sexy, you are not qualified to lift me shoes. Oh, you show me sexy. There was a sneer on Betty's face, with disdain inside and out. Stussy was the only one who could threaten her. And the guy in front of him is absolutely not qualified. Stupid woman. Ivankov's nails suddenly stretched out and became sharp, and it was a puck against the fat waist, injecting female hormones. Under the eyes of many people, Ivankov's obese body shape began to change, becoming slimmer, height began to be raised, hair began to soften, face shrinking, chest bulging, legs slender, skin whitening. 1 minute. Say long is not long, say short is not short. 6 pairs of eyes stared at Ivankov, all of them slightly open with a look of surprise. Right in front of them, Ivankov gradually became a bumpy and warped woman, especially the 2-36E, the water snake waist and the long white legs. The delicate face is even more flawless. How about, stupid woman? With one hand on his hips, Ivankov was quite a huge weapon, showing the bumpy and warped figure, all in one body with a wonderful workmanship, raised his chin and looked at Betty condescendingly, full of superiority. Stussy, who had always kept smiling, gradually disappeared. The queen's aura began to strengthen, and the look in Ivankov's eyes was not right. I always thought that Betty was the enemy, but I didn't expect this pervert to be the enemy. Betty's eyes narrowed slightly, and the murderous aura broke through the ceiling. Do you want to find time to bury this pervert? Just Ivankov's current appearance and figure completely compares Stussy and Betty. Everyone is a young man, so there is always a bit of comparison. Even after more than 2 decades, looks, figure, and beauty are the vanity of all women. The more Stussy and Betty look at Ivankov, the more displeased they are. This guy is still doing all sorts of sultry moves, and the vigor that radiates from all over his body is simply eyedrops. F*K too arrogant. Rampant. It's a pity that even if Ivankov is beautiful now, he can't hook the 4 men present, no matter how sultry the moves are. Aquino and the bear are completely uninterested and turn a blind eye. Crocodile is even more cold-eyed, he doesn't catch a cold to all women. As for Chaos, his heart moved for a moment, but when he thought of Ivankov's true face, his soul almost left. However, Ivankov's show-off has just begun. Glancing at Betty and Stussy very contemptuously, she flung up the dark purple wavy and curly hair, and the nail on her left hand became sharp again, and it was a tie against the waist of the water snake. Male hormones began to be injected. Slowly the 36E weapon disappeared, the waist of the water snake disappeared, 10 packs of abdominal muscle appeared in the abdomen, the skeleton began to expand, and the hair began to shorten. Handsome. Ivankov became a masculine and handsome man in the blink of an eye. Every muscle, every bone is just right. Ivankov does a fitness exercise, stretched muscle lines, full of pleasing to the eye. Crocodile's face also cooled. Aquino and the bear are still so plain. As for Chaos, there is no envy or envy. As long as he wants to, he can completely modify his body with the return of life, so it is not difficult for Chaos to have a perfectly proportioned figure and handsome. However, Ivankov's ability to change gender when he wants to change is still very good. Used to disguise, it is simply perfect. He was even more curious about what it was like for Crocodile to become a woman, and what it was like for Aquino and the bear, and Betty and Stussy to become men. Next, we will stay here for another month. I hope you can maximize your strength, because the next life will be colorful. It happens that everyone has a deep understanding. Lao Sha. Take advantage of now you to tell everyone about the purpose and culture of our group. Feeling the more and more partial atmosphere, Chaos changed the subject. With the abilities of Shang and Ivankov, the recovery after practice will be greatly improved, and it is simply the best aid for practice. The reason why Chaos still stayed on the Isle of Thunder for a month was because he had a feeling. Golden Fruit seems to be able to be further developed. He has a solid body foundation, so he plans to get some of the moves developed by Tezzolo awakening in the original work. It would be a big surprise if a mistake can make golden fruit awaken. But so far, he has no clue about awakening, so he can only make golden fruit on the basis of it. No problem. As soon as I listened to lectures on purpose and culture, Crocodile was highly energetic. After all, this kind of treatment is not available to everyone. The bear was expressionless, and Ivankov returned to normal with a confused expression. What purpose culture? Boss, where are you going? Crocodile had just walked to the other side of the long table and used his power to turn into a sandboard, ready to throw himself into the identity of a professor, only to find that Chaos had left the golden throne and was ready to leave. How does this work? Professor Shaw was in class, how could he be absent? You speak slowly, and you must wear a sea-stone bracelet for your cultivation. Chaos has no time to waste here, he has to ponder the further development of golden fruit. Without giving Crocodile the chance to stay, he disappeared. Hip-hop? What purpose culture? Ivankov is a little curious, because Betty's face is ugly, Aquino is even more sluggish, and Stussy is even more helpless. It seemed that Crocodile was the only one who was in a state of excitement, just like he was injected with hyperhormone, even his eyes were green. The so-called purpose culture is the core idea of our richest group. Crocodile has completely entered the teaching state, and began to focus on explaining Ivankov and Shang. As for Aquino, Stussy, and Betty, they should learn from the past. With Crocodile's eloquence, Ivankov's face gradually became weird. Although he is a pervert, he still has the three most basic views. Even the bear frowned instead of keeping his face blank. Ah! Betty collapsed on the long golden table with her head in her arms, really wanting to poke a hole in Crocodile with the flagpole. She was talking every night in the last month, and she was shocked to hear it. Even in her dreams, she dreamed that Crocodile was teaching. It seems that Betty hasn't been affected in any way. Actually not. Infusion brainwashing like Crocodile is already subconsciously affecting. Stussy is the most successful example, but not by speaking, but by following Chaos for a lot of experience, so it was successfully affected. As for Aquino, it is a semi-finished product, without success or failure. After all, Crocodile is also the first time to use language to brainwash, instead of being influenced by Chaos's action experience like Stussy. This is the difference. So Aquino was schizophrenic, and sometimes he became irritable and fearless, and he did not accept it. Mang is right. I'm afraid Whitebeard is here, he will go up without saying a word. This is Aquino now. After schizophrenia, the whole person is not right. After Crocodile finished talking about the purpose and culture, both Ivankov and Shang fell into contemplation. Stussy drank the red wine calmly, and Betty sighed in relief, and almost couldn't help but touch Crocodile several times. Aquino's eyes were hollow. Crocodile didn't know what to say, but he stopped. Okay. That's it for today. This is the bracelet for both of you. Stussy drank the red wine in the glass and took out 2 sea-stone bracelets from a box not far away and placed them in front of Ivankov and the bear. Hip-hop, is this sea-stone? Yes. The next thing you need to do is to adapt, and then practice with sea-stone. Stussy slowly put on her bracelet. Useless. Betty was talking cold words on the side, her pretty face full of contempt. Crocodile despised Betty, even Stussy, as did someone a month ago. Close to the center of Thor Island. When Chaos returned here, his whole body was bathed in a pillar of thunder, and a large area was crackling and arcing. In this case, if Chaos develops golden fruit, it will be a lot of pressure. The golden goose feather coat and the light wheel on his body are all conducting, but they are all within the range of Chaos's tolerance. A huge shadow fell from the thunderous clouds, she was the goddess. It's just that now I'm bathed in thunder and lightning, it looks a little scary. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Chaos looked at the goddess in thought. In the original book, Tezzolo was able to eject a laser from his eyes while controlling the golden giant. Not only was it powerful but also had a long range, even a warship 10 kilometers away could be easily destroyed. Chaos wanted to develop this trick. It's a laser, or it shoots out of the eyes, no matter how you look at it, it's pretty tricky. It also has high temperature penetration. It seems to be called the golden sacred fire. There is also a trick called the gold karma fire. It will explode when the fist of the golden giant is knocked out of the molten gold, and the heat radiation produced can even illuminate the entire city, with the same power as a missile. Wang Luffy was knocked out by this trick. Chaos wanted to bring out the golden sacred fire and the gold karma fire, especially the laser eye of the golden sacred fire. How did Tezzolo develop it? In developing gold into laser eyes, Chaos has to talk about cowhide. I can't figure it out at all. How can I get it back? There is no basis at all. Or is it that these moves can only be developed when the golden fruit is awakened? Rumble. As Chaos was contemplating, a huge explosion and roar came out in vain in the distance. Betty's hot voice can be heard even this far away. Pervert ladyboy, my old lady stabbed you to death. Hip-hop male hormones. No, my hormonal fruit is lost. Not knowing what was going on, Betty and Ivankov got to work. Crocodile is also competing with the bear, only Aquino and Stussy are in peace, and now Aquino is consulting the sixth form. He wants to learn the 6 forms and even return the awakened life. If the master's 6 forms and life are returned, with his hot fruits, it will be a close-knit weapon. As for seeing, hearing and armed colors, he will also pay close attention. Since schizophrenia, Aquino's talent seems to have risen a lot. In the previous month, shaving and moonwalk have been used proficiently, finger pistol and tempest kick are also faintly successful. Maybe the next month we'll be able to start the Master 6. You must know that the current practice environment is extremely bad. Thunder will smash down from time to time in the sky. What's more, Bears and Ivankov can bounce fatigue, injuries, and hormone injections. You can practice for 23 hours 24 hours a day, which is 690 a month. Hours are enough. It was so noisy, accompanied by fighting and anger every day. Today, either Betty had a fight with Ivankov, or with Stussy, Aquino, Crocodile, and even the bear. The same is true for other people. Fighting is the fastest way to get acquainted with a person. Most of them ended up with a swollen nose and a swollen face, but under the treatment of the bear and Ivankov, after a short rest, they became alive again. In the evening, there is a time when Crocodile talks about purpose and culture, which is a hard requirement stipulated by Chaos. Tenton passed. Everyone is an arrogant person, especially Betty and Stussy are fighting overtly and secretly. Even Ivankov is involved. Even Bears, Crocodile, and Aquino are also affected. A group of people go deep into the Isle of Thunder and finally arrive. The area where Chaos is located. This area is completely Thundersea, can be regarded as a valley, and in the valley is a lake composed of thunder. Chaos is in it. 20 days is enough for Chaos to adapt to these thunders. To say what was the most successful in these 20 days, it must be physique. After the baptism of Thunder Day and Night, the metabolism is abnormally fast, and the physical strength, endurance, and recovery are far beyond the previous ones. In addition to physical fitness, it is a golden fruit. At present, the goddess is 170 meters, but Chaos initially estimated that he could control up to 200 meters, and he jumped 30 meters in just 20 days. This is not the golden light wheel behind the goddess. From this, it can be seen that Chaos's physique has become stronger not just a little bit. Whether you admit it or not, the use of devil fruit depends on your physical strength, and your physical strength is your physical strength, so golden fruit can grow in such a short period of time. Physique enhancement is not only about devil fruit, but also 6 forms, life return, as well as armed color and seeing and hearing color. Although these have been enhanced, Chaos is not too happy, because he still hasn't worked out the laser eye and the gold karma, and has no clue at all. Sighing out from the Thunder Lake, Chaos has found Betty and others. Now they are all standing by the lake watching the thunder that is both still and violent. Not bad, I can be here in 20 days. Feeling the aura spreading from the 6 people, he has made greater progress than him. Especially Aquino. Boss, are you even frowning? Betty stared at Chaos as if she had discovered the big news. She could see clearly just now, and Chaos sighed and was absent-minded. Chaos turned Byakugan, too lazy to answer Betty's complaints. This woman is just a talkative, and her temper is very irritable. Except for the 2 taciturn guys, Aquino and the bear, Crocodile, Stussy, and Ivankov have nothing to do with her. Sometimes it's really annoying. When you can't scold someone, you have to stab others to death. These 6 people have gone through a lot of battles in these 20 days, and Betty is the first to take action each time. Compared with Betty's annoying, there is a blue who is better than blue. That is Ivankov. This guy died, and in the dead of night, he really attacked the bear, Aquino, and Crocodile into women, and also turned Stussy and Betty into men. That time Ivankov was almost drowned in the sea. If it wasn't for Chaos to find out, Ivankov would be gone. However, after the Crocodile 5 changed their gender, they were really beautiful and handsome, but both sides couldn't accept it psychologically. So Ivankov suffered the most severe beatings, and now he is the only person with a swollen nose and a swollen face. His eyes are narrowed, his face is swollen, and his face is blue. The head was originally relatively large, but now that it is swollen, Only the calf can be seen, and it is impossible to see that it is standing at all. It is the head at a glance. Lao Sha, go grab the 2 sea kings. Chaos intends to fix the day and relax. It may be better to have slack and relax. Even the all-weather release of sight and hearing has also been put away. No problem. Taking off the sea stone bracelet and throwing it to Stussy, Crocodile turned into flying sand and disappeared. Boss, I want to challenge you. Akino's tone was plain, but full of hostility and madness. In these 20 days, he and others have done a lot of fights, except that they have not done it with chaos. Currently in the entire group, Akino is the real fighter. Except for cultivation, it is fighting, and it is either fighting or on the way to fighting. Wait until you finish eating. Chaos stretched, and did not refuse. As a boss, sometimes you need to brighten your muscles. An hour later, on the edge of Thor's island, Chaos was picking his teeth with the golden needle, and Achino looked serious on the opposite side. Not far away, Stussy and others were drinking red wine, eating meat with golden tableware, while watching the two holding each other. Boom. The billowing heat wave spreads with Aquino as the center, and the ground beneath his feet melts directly into magma. The whole person is red and steam rises, and the air is baked and rippled. Chaos wore golden beach pants and flip-flops, golden goose feather coat, light wheel, etc., so that the body is slender and full of health, with bulging muscles, which is a perfectly proportioned body. The magma on the ground exploded, leaving behind a steam shadow on the spot. In the blink of an eye, Aquino appeared in front of Chaos, the hot temperature hit his face, and the skin began to tingle. This temperature is still within the tolerance of Chaos. It's just that the water in the body disappears a bit quickly, and in this high-temperature environment, it can consume the enemy without Aquino's hands. Sun Apollo. As soon as he came up, Aquino turned on its firepower, raising the temperature to the limit of 9,000 degrees C, and his right hand was crimson like a small luminous sun, even wrapped in an armed color, and blasted towards Chaos in one fell swoop. It's all to the death. Chaos raised the corner of his eye, and this punch gave him a lot of crisis. It was originally planned to use Iron Body to fight hard, but now it seems very sloppy. He made a decisive decision and turned golden from head to toe. Both the black eyes and the vertical hair were dyed golden. At the same time, the whole body bulged into the Iron Body, and his right hand was covered with armed color to block it in front of him. Boom. The powerful avalanche spread rapidly, and hills were raised around them, and they were finally destroyed by the high-temperature heat wave, forming a crimson airwave to smooth everything. Chaos's feet were sunken in the ground, and his right hand was trembling, and the smell of meat was wafting along with the mist. Aquino was chasing like a spiral cannonball, his right arm was crimson with blue veins bulging, once again grabbed a group of crimson aperture, and smashed towards Chaos in one fell swoop. This ordinary blow is equivalent to a big move. Chaos used the armed color this time. Because of the armed color and goldenization, the whole arm formed black gold, and the front collided with Aquino's fist. A huge explosion stood up, and a large amount of steam diffused to obscure the line of sight. Aquino turned into streamer and flew out of it, sweeping the rock and magma all the way, and finally hit a barren mountain, which easily melted the entire barren mountain. Chaos stepped out of the steam, shook hands in thought. He seemed to have caught something, and it seemed that he didn't. That feeling is very strange. At the melting waste Yamanaka, Aquino stepped sideways and aimed at Chaos with his right shoulder. The steam rose, covered with the color of the armed forces, and finally ejected. Savage collision. The surrounding scenery quickly retreated, and Aquino could no longer be seen, only a dazzling luminous body. Before it arrived, there was a heat wave that could easily burn people to death. Chaos still didn't hide, but looked at Aquino's eyes brighter and brighter. Rumble. The sight of the landslide in the cracks, a magma rushing out of the sea, the center has been enveloped by a large amount of steam, and the sunken 100-meter crater can be vaguely seen. At this moment, Chaos pressed one hand against Aquino's shoulder, a large fan-shaped gully appeared behind him, and his beach pants were dancing wildly. Even with the armed color, gold and iron body, Chaos felt the burning sensation from his hand. High-temperature gun. Aquino swiftly counterattacked, raising his right index finger and middle finger, poking his eyebrows towards Chaos in one fell swoop. But Chaos just turned his head and dodged, and at the same time he clenched his fist and blasted Aquino's abdomen in one fell swoop. Iron Body. Aquino's eyes changed, his body bulged and used Iron Body, covered with armed color. Puff. With the force of the mountains and the sea, Aquino bends into shrimps in the first time, and a shock wave behind it pushes the magma horizontally and leaves the Kongjuang Avenue. The entire red face is twisted, and a lot of hot blood is constantly pouring out of his mouth and nose. Chaos easily broke Aquino's defense with this punch. As the huge heat wave set off, Aquino flew out with a sonic boom, leaving a magma passage through the barren mountains along the way, and finally disappeared. Chaos blows off the smoke from his fist and is very satisfied with Aquino's performance. In addition to the previous month and the current 20 days, I have learned to shave, moonwalk, finger pistol, iron body, and armed color, and the temperature of the hot fruit has also increased significantly. Not to mention the top talent, but it is also a genius. In this kind of high-temperature environment, whether it is water in the body or physical strength, even armament hockey consumes faster than usual fighting. If you are a person as strong as Aquino, fighting in this environment will last forever. Nuahui will become stronger and stronger, and the enemy will consume a lot of physical strength and armed color, and the body will definitely not be able to hold it. It's boring, I lost too fast. On the golden chair in the distance, Betty was talking coldly, but a layer of sweat appeared on her forehead. The surrounding temperature is a bit high, she doesn't like it very much. Bear, go and see. Chaos flashed to Betty and returned to normal looking at the bear. The bear put down the golden knife and fork and disappeared into the seat out of thin air. It took Aquino back in almost 10 seconds. The damage has been ejected, so Aquino's face is just a little pale, and he will be alive after a short rest. Chaos sat in the first place, frowning on the long golden table with one hand, completely plunged into his own world. Just fighting Aquino gave him a lot of inspiration. Laser eyes should be high-temperature rays. Is it to turn the finances away and turn them into high-temperature gold liquid? But how to heat it? And many more. Chaos's brain flashed, and he thought of armed color. This is a panacea. If the armed color is used as an energy source, is it possible to heat gold to generate high-temperature and high-density energy, which can then be expanded and shot out in an instant? This seems to be the golden molten fire developed by Tezzolo. Do as he thinks of it, and Chaos disappears into his chair. He is going to study hard. The departure of Chaos didn't bother everyone. He should eat and drink, and he also made a lot of comments on the battle just now. So I don't know what's going on, the frame is working again. In this way, 10 days passed quietly. Calculating the time, the group of them stayed on Thor Island for 2 months. The flow of Dahai related to the richest group and the Golden Emperor also began to decrease. After all, the world is so big, it is impossible to keep hot search for that long. For example, the marine hero Garp and the Roger pirates got involved in a certain sea area in New World. Some of the Big Mom pirates and Beasts pirates did not stop, especially Big Mom, either on the way to giving birth or being pregnant. And Golden Lion met Whitebeard, which made Marine more vigilant, and Sengoku was sent to New World. The explosive pirates and the world government CPO are investigating pure gold, both openly and secretly. There are also some powerful pirate groups, or rookies who are happy at sea. The reputation of Sakazuki, Pelusalino and Kuzan is getting stronger day by day. At the same time, a force called the Revolutionary Army is also quietly growing. It's just that the world government hasn't noticed yet. North Blue, a force called the Don Quixote family, is also growing. There is a guy named Gecko Moria who plans to kill Beast's pirates. There are many events, and everything is developing in accordance with the original trajectory. Marigel Waters. Momigoat Island. The most luxurious hotel in Dryford. There has been no news for 2 months. Is it fake news? King Naruto, the color-changing king of the 5 rudders of the explosive pirate group, was a little irritable while drinking strong wine. He has been waiting here for 2 months. He has been investigating news about pure gold. He has traveled all over the surrounding islands, and he has also released conflicts with the world government. For example, CP0. The only good news is that the world government has not found anything. Why? Kun Lord didn't let us go back. Sitting on the opposite side was the Mantis King S. Subik, the second rudder master, pulling back the earphones that were playing superb music, and looking at the color-changing King Naruto very indifferently. He regarded the investigator as a tourist, so he had a very comfortable life. He was not in a hurry anyway. As long as the explosion Kun Lord does not let him go back, he doesn't mind staying for a while. Eat and drink, play and gamble, don't be too comfortable. And the person he was afraid of had been away for half a month, and no one could threaten him on Momigat Island now. The color-changing king took another sip of wine, and he knew that the Mantis King was talking about Ochaku. On the other side of the island, the secret office of the world government. Is there still no sign of the lanternfish? Number 10 sits on a chair with his feet on the desk and looks at a Marine Rear Admiral in front of him. Not far away, on the sofa, the pterodactyl CP0 wears a unique mask and closes his eyes. They have returned here since leaving Happy Island. Unfortunately, there was no trace of the lanternfish for 2 months. No, Marine Rear Admiral shook his head. The CP0 in front of him is currently the highest officer. He received the order that everything should be dominated by this sissy man. The Mantis King S. Subic, the second rudder master of the explosive pirates, and the color-changing King Neradar, the fifth rudder master, are still on the island. On the 10th, he picked up the strawberry drink next to him. He liked the taste more than wine. Yes, always in the Dryford Hotel. Rear Admiral has some doubts. Isn't this asking knowingly? The one sitting on the sofa next to him only fought 5 days ago, okay. Forgot so soon? Go down. Number 10 waved and looked back at the ceiling from time to time, thinking. He reported to the above whether or not to kill the Color Change King and the Mantis King. After all, the less you know about pure gold, the better. The above agreed at first. But when he acted, he suddenly changed his mind. After all, it was useless to solve the Color Change King and the Mantis King. The main thing was the explosion Kun Lord. If you get rid of the 2 Mantis Kings, then the explosion will happen. Lord Kun will definitely take action. Plus the current situation in New World is a bit chaotic, so there is no need to cause those troubles. Explosion Kun is not a small character, and its destructive power is no worse than Golden Lion or Whitebeard. The most important thing is that pure gold is too much to find a needle in a haystack. The world government has been looking for it for so many years, but so far there is no visible effect. The only visible effect is to confirm that pure gold does exist, and it can indeed allow people to maintain youth and delay life. Thousands of meters high in the sky, a white cloud seemed to be alive, moving straight in one direction. On this white cloud stood the sacred and extraordinary goddess. The height has reached 200 meters. At the feet of the goddess, there are long tables and chairs formed by white clouds, and red wine and some snacks are placed on the white table. How to say? Kyos remained the same, still in that fancy dress. The same is true for Crocodile, Social Man. It hasn't changed much. The only thing that has changed is that the fingers wear a gold ring. Stussy changed a little. Except for the golden earrings that turned into snowflakes, that short golden curly hair ended with black clouds, just reaching the waist, flashing electric light from time to time, and matching the flowing white silk ribbon. It has a vague sense of sacredness. Full of goddess fan. The bells and whistles need not be less than Kyos and Crocodile. Then there was Aquino, who changed his previous outfit and began to become mysterious. The feet heat up, resulting in high-temperature steam, a large amount of rising and flashing Madara fire, covering the entire body and face, and looking at it from a distance is a cloud of high-temperature steam. I don't know whether there are people or ghosts inside. It is very mysterious. For this special effect dressing, it is less than 90 points, and the full score is 100. Betty has also changed. The original flagpole has been changed to gold with weird patterns carved on it. He wears star-shaped gold long earrings, and wears a thin layer of exquisitely crafted open-chested shorts. On the white waist with a full grip, wrapped around this chain wearing a golden star chain, it will make a very clear and loud ethereal sound as he walks. The least change should be the bear, still the same. Not to mention the above, it is still within the scope of acceptance. Although they are all fancy, at least you can watch them, and there is a sense of pleasing to the eye. But the next one completely subverted the human world view, and felt that his eyes would be blinded at a glance, if he saw the Golden Emperor want to stab to death with a knife. So how come this one is vicious, just want to kill? Whether it's poisoning or dividing the body by 5 horses, or all kinds of cruel punishments, they just want to kill. That's right, Ivankov. A dark purple curly hairstyle with big waves hanging down, and a delicate face with perfect proportions. It can be described as a beautiful face. Any movement is a shameless flower with a closed moon. It also wears gold earrings. The white and smooth clavicle is 2 huge 36E weapons. The key is that it is only tied up by a golden rope, and the big semicircle is exposed. With this upper body alone, she Ivankov is the most beautiful woman in the world. But follow Ying Ying's waist, all the way down. The first thing I saw was a piece of C-shaped trousers. The rope at the back was completely sunken, but the front was raised. At least as big as 2 fists of an adult. I could vaguely see the shape of something. This is so spicy. As long as you are not blind, you can know what Ivankov's occupation is. When I first saw Ivankov's pervert dress, Chaos was almost sprayed out by the New Year's Eve dinner, and even had an idea of burying Ivankov directly. Not to mention the others, they all got goosebumps and looked disgusted. In the end, Ivankov was in a large font, protecting his final stubbornness with a swollen nose and swollen face. This costume is not a normal pervert. The main thing is that the upper body is as beautiful as an immortal, while the lower body is a nightmare of hell. The contrast is too great, and the mental capacity is weak. At present, except that the bears are relatively normal. Others are very personal. Boss, where are we going? Ivankov opened his attractive red lips, and his voice was soft, like the feeling of a cat's claw scratching his heart, but Chaos couldn't stop the chill. Mary Gel Waters. Chaos's ability to bear is still very strong, not to mention he has always been generous. Can't curb the preferences of his subordinates. Although Ivankov's dress is very pervert, it is also in line with the tolerance of the richest group. What are you going to do? Look for pure gold to maintain youth and prolong life. Chaos didn't intend to conceal it. The pure gold in the original theatrical version is the size of a fist, and the Miskina Oroja ring only contains pure gold the size of a sesame, which can delay life expectancy, so the fist is so big. Chaos doesn't mind letting the little ones be as rich as him. What's more, as long as you catch Miskina Oroja's father, the scientist who made pure gold can continue to be synthesized. I don't know if I can control that kind of pure gold. After all, it is no longer pure gold. Maintain youth and prolong life. Ivankov was taken aback for a moment, somewhat unresponsive. Even the bear looked at Chaos. Others are calm because they know in advance. Boss, don't be kidding. Ivankov obviously doesn't believe it. How can there be things in this world that can maintain youth and delay life? Isolate an ignorant. Let this queen give you this pervert to popularize it. Stussy swept the hair from his forehead to the root of his ears, and then faded away. Some of them were just Queen Fan. Anyway, she can control any temperament, but Queen Fan is the temperament she controls the most, so that it can overwhelm everyone in the team. Including Betty, a hot exhibitionist. And Ivankov, the pervert, threatened her very much when she became a woman, even surpassing Betty for a time. So it must be strong. Queen's temperament, suppress all enemies. Betty pouted her lips on the side, her eyes full of contempt. She was most upset about Stussy. She felt too pretentious. 100 years ago. As Stussy spoke, all about the role of pure gold, the lanternfish came out. Then how can you bring out the lanternfish? After listening, Ivankov questioned. It is undoubtedly a needle in a haystack to find a sea kings in the boundless sea, which is simply unrealistic. Lanternfish should like gold, so. Stussy turned her head to look at the goddess, who is more than 200 meters tall, and with the golden light wheel erected behind her, this size is already huge. And it's all refined high-density pure gold, without any flaws. It was originally at 170 meters, but after leaving Thor Island, Chaos sensed a gold mine on an island, and then refined and integrated it to get the goddess to 200 meters. So boss, you want to use the goddess to catch the lanternfish? Ivankov's eyes widened and turned to look at Chaos's bright peachy eyes. Try it, the success rate shouldn't be great. Chaos frustrated a cigar, and he was not sure after a sip. The pure gold that lanternfish likes may be the kind synthesized by scientists, not his kind of gold. But it's worth a try anyway, in case the lanternfish is also interested. Mary Gel's sea area is so big, how do you fish? Betty complained. It is impossible for her to become a dull gourd like the bear in Aquino. That guy should have been wandering around Alchemy Island. Alchemy Island is the island where a scientist named Miskina Ossier made pure gold, but it was swallowed by a lanternfish. Therefore, in which area the lanternfish linger for many years, just go to the nearest island of Alchemy to investigate the original location of Alchemy. Maybe you can try to fish with the goddess. The closest island to Alchemy is Momigat Island. The place where Chaos went this time is Momigat Island. Boss, the world government has sent CPO, and the explosive pirates has sent a reward of 1.236 million second rudder Mantis King S. Subic, and a reward of 813 million 5 rudder. Lord Neridal, the king of color change, they are all investigating on Momigat Island. The red light district is already on the right track, and there is a branch in Momigat Island, so it is not difficult to know the color change king, the Mantis King and the No 10. Chaos has already learned about the people with the explosive pirates in the world government faction. Let's not mention the number 10 CP0 mother gun, just this explosive pirate group is quite powerful. However, in the next 20 years, it should disappear. It won't last long. After all, The fruit of the explosion will be obtained by Crocodile's subordinate Mr. 5 in the future. It's all chicken and shingle dogs. Crocodile crossed his shoulders with his hands, with a cigar in his mouth with a look of disdain. A mere CPO, a mere reward of 1,236 million, can be solved at hand. It is swelling. The Mantis King and the Color Change King are not simple, let alone that guy. Stussy's complexion was heavy. During this period, he offered a reward of more than 800 million, and the Mantis King was as high as 1.2 billion, and he was already a great pirate. After 20 years, it will be the overlord of one party. Now he is also the overlord of one party. Even the current three of Sakazuki, Paluzolino, and Kuzan have to be jealous, and they won't even be opponents. However, Stussy is more afraid of number 10, because he knows how powerful the opponent is. It's that girl gun? Chaos's eyes were not right. Last time Coco, one of Stussy's 3 men, gave him a call. So he knew that Stussy had been severely injured by the girl cannon. After talking to 5 elders, Stussy did not backhand, but let the girl can leave safely. This makes Kaios very upset. Stussy is his subordinate. As the boss, he has caused his subordinates to be wronged. Where can he put his face? Isn't this slap him in the face? Who is he, Chaos? All you need is face. Don't mention anything else, whether it's about protecting the calf, or about saving face, or vanity. In any case, number 10 is already dead in the eyes of Chaos. Not to mention Stussy, Chaos is treated equally to anyone present. Being the boss can't even protect his subordinates. What's that? Yes. Stussy was also a little helpless. She gave Kokis a lesson during that call. Although the starting point was to care about her, she could take the initiative to report to Chaos, which was a bit overstepped. She just doesn't want to provoke the world government. Of course, she was also reprimanded by Chaos. Although it was a reprimand, she felt quite comfortable. After all, Kaios didn't regard her as a handy subordinate. Huh. Anyone who dares to bully me must die. Chaos snorted coldly. This time, even if Jesus came, he couldn't keep that sissy gun. He was sure to kill. What is it? You were actually bullied. Betty is very interested, especially Stussy has been bullied. This is Black history. There will be another topic in the quarrel in the future. Go aside. Stussy flipped by a Kugan, and the stupid woman poked her ass and she knew what she was thinking. Just want to catch her Black history, and then hit her. Childish. Boom boom boom. Chaos knocked on the table with one hand, attracting the eyes of a few people. His expression was serious. Remember, you are the people of the richest group, and the people I agree with Gaia Chaos. As your boss, I must protect you. Except for me, no one dares to make you wronged. No matter who provokes you and commits me to death, I stand behind you unconditionally. My vanity is very strong, and I have a good face. Remember it all. Chaos finished speaking, and the atmosphere calmed down a little. Puff. Betty couldn't help laughing. She felt that Chaos was funny. She was forced to join the richest group, and she would not hesitate to leave if she had the opportunity. And she could also see that everyone present was not one mind at all. It was all Chaos forcibly glued together. If something happened to Chaos, they would all part ways. This man took it for granted. Think this will move them? It's ridiculous. It's a bit too much. It's good not to put a knife behind your back. Our sexy role wants to have other opinions, so we can say it boldly. The richest man group has never spoken out. I think I am a very cheerful boss. Chaos breathed out smoke rings, squinted and smiled slightly. Of course he knew that everyone in this team had their own ghosts, and it would be impossible in a short time like the Straw Hat Pirates to die willingly for their partners. He had never thought about it this way. All he wants is an attitude. As long as he is there for a day, then this team will develop according to his will, even if it's just a show. It's so overbearing. Even if Crocodile betrayed him now, he wouldn't hesitate to kill him. Everyone present was the same. I have no opinion. Betty felt that the atmosphere was not right for the first time. After all, everyone present was abnormal. Lao Sha. Remember to add this to the culture of purpose. Chaos didn't ask him, and everyone present was not a fool, and they should all understand him. Not for other things, it's the vanity and face. Boss, you know how to sail. One day later, over the turbulent sea, Chaos stood with his hand holding his hand and looked at the larger and larger island, which was Momigat Island. Betty looked like she had discovered some new world behind her, with an incredible look. On this day, they encountered a lot of bad weather, but each time Chaos could find out or avoid it in advance. It can only be said that it is worthy of New World. The weather is changeable and there is no law at all. Is it hard? Chaos squinted his eyes, and his face was faint with smoke. Installed a small bee. Seeing this expression on Chaos, Betty's face went dark. What's great, isn't it just navigation knowledge? Cut. It was because Tsunere's head was turned too far, she didn't want to talk to Chaos. You have to pretend in front of your own people, true and hypocritical. Boss, shall we go fishing for lanternfish first? Don't panic, let's go and kill that girl first. Chaos's eyes are lingering. Stussy hid her forehead helplessly, she knew it would. Today's Momigot Island is as calm as usual. The sun is shining and there is no cloud, it is a very good weather. Suddenly, an extremely high, shocking, tragic and passionate BGM containing a magnificent momentum and passionate spirit came from the sky like a bolt from the sky. It's hard not to hear the whole island. What is that? Oh my god. What's the situation? On the undulating sea, the clear sky has disappeared, and some are just black clouds that are constantly rolling and rotating, and the thunder and storms are blowing, and finally they are divided into 7 figures standing on top of the earth. The head is upright, with a huge aperture spinning behind it. Beside it in turn are a figure spinning the swastika, 2 female figures wearing white clouds and silk and carrying a flagpole, an invisible figure, an upper body woman and a lower body man, plus a bear-like figure. There are a total of 7 figures, composed of black clouds, bathed in electric light, standing up to the ground, at least thousands of meters. Seen from a distance, they are the gods and demons who pioneered the world, full of visual and subversive nature. Gradually stepping on the sea towards Momigot Island. God. This is God. Many of the residents of Momigot Island knelt down on the ground. Even some pirates turned pale with fright. The scene before him was really shocking. Big. Super big. And every shape is full of gorgeousness. At the window of the Dryford Hotel, Mantis King S. Subic frowned, looking at the 1,000-meter black cloud figure on the sea horizon, slightly frightened. This was the first time he saw such a scene. Although the weather in New World is weird and changeable, it hasn't changed so much. The 7,000-meter black cloud silhouettes bathed in thunderlight are simply gods sent from heaven. Why is the leader so like the Golden Emperor? The color-changing King Neridal was also shocked, but the more I looked at it, the more I realized where the figure in the head had been seen before, and the light flashed. Isn't this the enlarged version of the Golden Emperor? The Golden Emperor? The Mantis King was taken aback. By the way, I heard that the Golden Emperor has a lot of vanity, and every time he plays, he is very high profile. This should be made by Stussy, the Queen of Joy in the richest group, and that woman is Logia. The color-changing king picked up a stack of newspapers from the sofa, and there was news about all the members of the richest group some time ago. To compare one by one, the 7 impactful 1,000-meter figures are based on the person himself. What AF *K? Almost scared. Don't this guy know that the whole world wants to catch him? The way of playing is so arrogant. The Mantis King is really a bit wrong, and now the Golden Emperor is on the sea, but he is delicious, so he should be low-key when he replaces it with a normal person. But just such a high-profile appearance, as if wishing to tell the world that he is here. The Marine branch base on the other side of the island. On the 10th, she walked out of the office and looked at the shocking scene of the sky, with a sneer on her delicate face. I didn't expect to meet again so soon. Seeing that this time, the Golden Emperor also went out in person. It is really no effort to get through the iron shoes and nowhere to find. He wants to see how powerful the Golden Emperor who made Stussy betrayed. As for why number 10 recognized that Stussy did it for the first time, it was because he had fought against Happy Island. Logia Cloudy Fruit, it is too easy to make these fancy scenes. Plus that war BGM. Victory. The entire sea is the only one for the Golden Emperor. Regarding the character of the Golden Emperor, the world government has already investigated it clearly. Arrogant, strong vanity, like high profile, and want face. Based on these data, the Golden Emperor was just a clown in the eyes of number 10, and he didn't pay attention to it at all. Only the weak will engage in these grandstanding things. Shattering. Click. The gust of wind was raging constantly, lightning spreading under the sky, and the 7-kilometer figure strode forward like a god or devil towards the Marine branch. What's the matter? It seems to be rushing to the Marine branch. Many pirate thugs on the island are watching. All staff are on alert. At this time, many Marines in the Marine branch were pale, and the 7 figures swept through a 10th-level typhoon before they approached, and lightning fell to the ground with a strong lethality. Not good. The most frightening thing is that the 1,000-meter figure in the lead raised his palm, covering the clouds and covering the screen with lightning flashing, pressing down on the marine branch in one fell swoop. This scene made all marines' hearts jump into his throat. The area alone is scary. Bang bang. Many marines fired, but all of them were used as vehicles. The heavy sound of breaking through the air crashed down, and the entire marine branch was enveloped. For a time, flying sand and rock riots continued. Although the cloud is not a solid object, the lightning flashing inside is very powerful. When the kilometer giant figure pulled back, the entire marine branch had been reduced to ruins, but many marines did not suffer much damage except for a little embarrassment. But these seamen are above the rank of major. It seems bluffing, but the real lethality is not too much of a problem with some capable people. The fruits of Stussy need to be further developed. What is that? Sun. At this moment, whether it was the surviving marine or the other people on the island, all raised their heads to look up at the slanting firmament. A group of crimson firelight pierced through the clouds and was hitting the ground at a super high speed. Rumble. The hot high-temperature airwave formed a shock wave, and everything it went was burned. The ground surface was sunken in a radius of 100 meters. Pieces of the Earth's crust rose and burst, and the entire ground quickly melted into magma. So hot. Who is it? A lieutenant colonel was sweating while holding a long knife tightly. The jetted steam was like being in flames, and it was red like cooked dried shrimps. He can't hold on for long. Number 10 squinted and watched the lava billowing in the big crater, a cloud of red light and shadow surrounded by steam, step by step coming out. It is impossible to see whether a person is a ghost or a ghost only by sight. But it is not difficult to guess who the other party is. The hot responsibility of the richest group, Sun King Don Aquino. Beside number 10, the pterodactyl was calm. F*K, F*K. The air was baked to the point of ripples, a large amount of steam spread around, and the ground lava was rolling red. Aquino was in the magma, raised his head in the direction of number 10, and disappeared out of thin air as he exploded under his feet. The terrifying temperature burned, but only 2 or 3 breaths. Aquino appeared in front of number 10, his right hand was scarlet covering the armed color, and he punched out mighty. I don't know when no 10 feet's white and tender face climbed up with a layer of crystals, and his expression also became gloomy. Rumble. A huge explosion lifted off, a heat wave rolled up the surface, and all the land within a radius of 100 meters blew up and melted. No 10 feet's feet were sunken in the ground and moved out, steaming on his right hand. Pterodactyl was pushed out by the heat wave, and began to sweat. This temperature is too hot. The Sun King seems to be a real sun, and it is impossible for ordinary people to approach it. But, self-defeating. In the eyes of the pterodactyl, the Sun King was already dead. Hip-hop, do you want to become a woman or a new human? A hip-hop sound resounded beside him, and the pterodactyl turned his head expressionlessly. When he saw Ivankov's overwhelming upper body, his eyes flashed with throbbing. But when he glanced down, the whole person was not good. At any rate, he is also a 3-meter-high brawny man, but at this time there is only a bad cold. Bigger than him. Pervert, the richest man in charge, Emporio Ivankov, the king of she-males. I'm so famous now. Ivankov was digging his nostrils, 36E on his chest beating constantly. He had a shameful face, so don't be too irritable to do this right now. There is no sorrow as imagined, some just want to kill. Dragon finger. Just as Ivankov's words fell, the pterodactyl appeared with a shave, and his index finger covered the armed color and stabbed his throat in one fell swoop, like a flash of lightning. It's a kill when it comes up. Facial afterimages. Ivankov is very calm. I don't know when he disappeared in place, leaving behind a series of afterimages. Hip-hop, the beauty of the new she-male boxing technique, rotary kick. A strong wind came from behind the pterodactyl, and Ivankov's round, smooth, tender white legs swept out the color covering his arms in one fell swoop, and the big tufts in the absolute realm were beating recklessly. The pterodactyl raised his hand to resist, as the dull collision was accompanied by a distance between the two of them to hold each other. A bit capable, can actually block my beauty secret rotation kick. Ivankov made a few gimmicks. The pterodactyl had a sullen face. He didn't seem to see this male and female guy, so cold that he even had goosebumps. Die pervert, can you do it? Do you want me to add a buff to you? On the crust not far away, Betty appeared, carrying the gold flagpole, the right foot wearing the gold rose pattern high heels, stepping on the heights rudely, leaning down to look at Ivankov with contempt in his eyes. The word buff according to Boss means plugin plus dominant service, and stacking status. It is not difficult to understand literally, and it is also very suitable for her. So she expropriated the word. As the sexy and buff responsible for the richest group, her role is to allow everyone to improve their combat effectiveness, and her status is very important. So Betty is very swollen, she can despise everyone. The richest group dances Queen Bello Beatty. The pterodactyl frowned first, and then stretched out. Even if the she-male king and the dancing queen work together, he can deal with it. Boom. Betty appeared in vain in front of the pterodactyl, holding the gold flagpole in both hands, covered with a thick layer of armed color, and swept across the thousands of troops, full of violent violence. Pterodactyl's heart jumped. He didn't expect this woman to suddenly do something. With both hands in front of him, as the huge force struck, he couldn't stop flying out and hit the ruins. Fool. Call me the sexy queen. Betty landed lightly, and the golden star chain made a very clear and loud tinkling sound in the collision on the waist that was gripped. Very ethereal. But at this time Betty was very upset with the pterodactyl and didn't even use her honorific name. Men's capital crime, innocent crime plus one more. The stupid woman Stussy has always called herself the queen, she can't see it very much. So she has two more words than that stupid woman, your lady sexy. You can lose to anyone, but you can never lose to Stussy. This is the principle, there is no discussion. Rising from the ruins, the face of the pterodactyl was ugly. And not far away, the broken clouds condensed and formed, and Stussy glanced at Betty very plainly. This stupid woman would never want to surpass her for the rest of her life. Stussy. The pterodactyl's voice was low and felt great pressure. If it's just the ladyboy king and the dancing queen, he can still deal with the trade. But add Stussy. It's difficult. Seeing and hearing the color radiation and perceiving that number 10 is fighting the Sun King, completely gaining the upper hand. But in the 1,000 meters high in the sky with thunder and lightning, there are still 3 enemies. Looking at the pterodactyl, Stussy did not speak, but was silent. The whole body is floating with lightning. Call out. Betty couldn't make sense. She disappeared in place with a shave, and when she appeared, she was already on the side of the pterodactyl, with a golden flagpole in her hand covering the armed color, and went straight to Wanglong. The right hand of the pterodactyl changed into feathers, blocking the golden flagpole very hard, and the left hand blasted out like lightning. Betty tilted her head to avoid between the sparks, and a chain of ruins behind her was pierced to leave a finger hole, and she couldn't see her head at all. Hip-hop, death winks. Ivankov didn't look at it either. The phoenix eyes with long eyelashes blinked vigorously, and the air neighed and a shock wave appeared, which caused the pterodactyl's face to change slightly, and he quickly pulled away to avoid it. My mother didn't let you go. Do you dare to go? Betty's petty temper. She even grabbed the wings of the pterodactyl so tightly that the pterodactyl lost the best time to retreat, so she could only passively avoid the impact of death's wintry rumble. It turned into a cannonball and flew out. The mud and sand pierced through the air along the way. The pterodactyl quickly rose from the dust and transformed into a pterodactyl with its wings stretched out, and the sharp eyes were full of murderous intent. As a zone-capable person, he is still an ancient species, and with this attack, he cannot be severely damaged at all. What's more, he also has the ability to fly. He can leave at any time if he wants to leave. He is born invincible. What are these people fighting against him? You are still so arrogant. A familiar voice rang above his head. The pterodactyl raised his head. Stussy condensed into a body and pressed it down with one foot, and the absolute domain was clearly visible. It's green lace. It's also somewhat transparent. But the pterodactyl didn't have any interest in watching it, but felt a chill. Call out. A huge roar lifted into the air, and the pterodactyl fell straight to the ground, cracks spreading and tearing, and a large crater was formed in a radius of 100 meters, and Stussy's foot did not seem to be light. What a violent woman. Betty waved her hand to fan off the dust in front of her, looked at Stussy in midair with white clouds, and gave a cold snort of disdain. She had already seen the essence of Stussy, only pretend. Death winks, death winks. Ivankov hit the phoenix eyes several times, forming a shock wave that swept away the dust, revealing the true face of the pit. The pterodactyl remained fully animalized. Although it looked embarrassed, it did not suffer any injuries. Wing storm. The huge wings stretched out, and the pterodactyl swiftly turned in circles. In an instant, a crescent-shaped tempest kick swept like a storm, rushing toward the Stussy 3 in a dense crowd. This is an undifferentiated large-scale killer move. Even steel can be cut easily.